What we have here is a group of women who were seriously made for reality television, editors with amazing comedic timing, and producers who are constantly scheming. They are all so damn good at their jobs. They really are. And I can't wait to talk about them and everything that happened in season 2. We have some new characters who I will introduce in a second. But I also want to note that during the season 1 recap, I mentioned that I thought that my camera was crooked. I mentioned it numerous times, I think, actually. And it almost certainly was, but I have since realized that I also put up all of these photos kind of askew. Like they're a little bit at an angle. We're not going to let that stop us. No, I never said that this was a professional operation. It certainly isn't. It's arts and crafts. It's rugged. It's homemade, and that's beautiful. My previous video that covered the swinging scandal, Mormonism basics, season 1, and the press tour, it's not required reading, but it is definitely suggested, even encouraged, I would say. And I do just want to take this second to thank everybody who watched that first video. It was so awesome to see it doing so well after I worked very, very hard on it. Yeah, y'all really made my year, and that's not even a little bit of an exaggeration. Like I'm opening those comment notifications like they're texts from my crush. I'm giggling and kicking my feet and blushing. Thank you so much. That's all I have to say on that. Admittedly, some more information about the swinging scandal has come out and will be touched on in this video, even though it probably should have been in the first one. Is that annoying to y'all? I'm sure it is. It's annoying to me. It's annoying to me. But Mom Talk is an ever unfolding story. It is an ever giving drama machine. So we just have to do our best. Standard disclaimers that I really hate doing, but I know that I have to, just in case this video makes its way to anybody who doesn't get it. These are my opinions, and I will cite any sources outside of the show verbally and on screen as best I can. But this is just not that serious. It's just not that serious. I am not a salaried journalist. I just like to have a kiki on the internet. Girls just want to have fun. Let me have fun. Also, just a general notice, this video is covering the events of season 2, directly before and after. A lot of other things have happened. I haven't seen season 4. I am watching season 3. Season 5, up in the air. But I do read the news, so I know some of that real-time stuff. But that's not going to be in this video. We're not going to touch on that, because we have to have some sort of structure. We have to have some sort of timeline. We can't do an 8-hour-long video. So we're going to go through the timeline as it happened to the women within it, which does require us to travel back in time a little bit. So just put yourself back in that mindset of what they knew, their context, the time that we were in, okay? But trust me, we will get to that other stuff. Especially if this video gets the same kind of response that the last one did. I'll do anything for attention. I'll keep making these videos forever if you want, okay? We'll get there. We all know the cast of characters. I introduced them in my previous video, but just in case, here they are. We have Jen and Zach, Mikayla and Jace, Whitney and Connor, Mayci and Jacob, Taylor and Dakota, Demi and Brett, otherwise known as Peepaw, Jesse and Jordan, Layla, and our newest girl, Miranda and Chase. Chase is her ex-husband, but unfortunately, we will have to discuss him. Now, last time I really only discussed Taylor's lore going into the season. This time around, I need to tell you about Mayci and Mikayla's backstories because it will be talked about in season 2. Starting with Mayci, she did D1 tennis at BYU, which is a Mormon college, and they have a very strict honor code, which, according to their website, includes living a chaste and virtuous life, including abstaining from sexual relations outside marriage, and abstaining from same-sex romantic behavior, abstaining from alcohol beverages, tobacco, tea, coffee, vaping, marijuana, and other substance use, avoidance of profane and vulgar language, and dress and grooming principles and expectations, which is modesty codes. They recommend you wearing clothing that would cover garments, whether you have them or not. As a refresher, garments are a sacred undergarment that Mormons can get when they go through this temple ceremony. It's a short sleeve shirt with a neckline that's about mid-chest, and then basically like bike shorts. And they are supposed to wear these daily under all of their clothing to encourage modesty again. So there's a lot of rules at BYU, and no, it's not a suggestion. It's not a suggestion. This is a high control religion. That being said, Mayci self-admittedly was a bit of a bad girl in college. She was part of BYU's underground party scene. Now, Whitney also went to BYU, and you might be wondering, was she part of that party scene too? No. No, because she's a snitch, and we all know that. She's like Lisa Barlow calling Heather a good time girl. I guess Heather in this scenario would be Mayci, and she doesn't do that explicitly, but I could certainly see it happening. As fun as that was to muse on, we do have to get serious again. Mayci was in a relationship with a man who was in all of the ways. And she would try to leave him, but every single time that she would, he would threaten to tell BYU that she was breaking their honor code, which technically she was, and they are very strict. So she would have gotten in a lot of trouble. Now, eventually, she did manage to break up with him. She met a new guy, but then she got pregnant. So she had to drop out of school because, again, she would have gotten in trouble with BYU. A few weeks later, her baby daddy got into a car accident and passed away. Very traumatic event, as you can imagine. Tragic. She did end up having that child. She ended up going back to school, finding her purpose, vlogging. Now she's the Mayci that we see today, who is very wonderful. She has published a book about her experiences, which I would recommend reading if you want more in depth on that. Now on to talking about Mikayla. This is again going to be heavy. There's just no way around that. When she was growing up, her mother's boyfriend took advantage of her. And when she told her mother did not believe her. So she ended up moving out when she was 15 to go and live with her sister, who had also already moved out. She then got pregnant at 16 by a man who was 20 at the time. This is the man in question, by the way. I don't quote me on 20, but he was in felony range for that. Okay, that's what I do know. Wasn't charged. Okay. So she had her first kid at 17, but around 21, she started getting chronic health issues with her skin. She also got breast implants and then was getting constant rashes, went on steroids, got steroid withdrawal, had to get the implants taken out. And then since then, she's tried a variety of different things that, could this be the culprit? Could this be the culprit? Trying a bunch of different diets. If you're chronically ill, this is going to sound familiar. And it sucks. It does. And I do just want to note also that when I was writing this script, I made a specific note that at the time she was doing the Candida diet. Ooh. And that took me aback. That hit me right in the heart. That made me shed a tear because I've done the Candida diet. And that's not something you do unless you are desperate, because it is truly, it's hell on earth. There's nothing else to be said. You can basically eat nothing. There's nothing fun about it. There's nothing fun about it. So wishing her the best always on that. I have had my fair share of mysterious illnesses. I don't know if you could call them chronic if they're not occurring right now, but mysterious ailments that I went through a grueling process to try and fix. And it's really tough. There is a distinct feeling of hopelessness that comes with it. And I will say, the worst part for me was that mine all turned out to be caused by anxiety in the end. That's not the case with all chronic illnesses. That's just what the roll of the dice was for me. And that is a tough pill to swallow because there's not that much of a cure for anxiety. That's when you really have to work on hard yourself for the rest of your life. Not really what you want to hear. But we're working on it. Enough about me though. Surely that was enough about me. We do have some preseason drama to discuss. Also, I do just want to note before we get into it that if you're thinking that I look a little bit different, it's a different day. And I filmed the intro right before I went out for the night and right after I did a makeup trial for my wedding. So the fullest beat that you can imagine. We're not doing all of that now, but I may have other points in this video where I have a different makeup look because I just don't film this all at one time. If you see a favorite look, please let me know. That would actually help me greatly. I'm not looking for constructive criticism on my face or my looks in general. I'm just saying if you see me looking absolutely heavenly at some point in the video, please make note of that. Any other sort of criticism, again, not looking for that. Okay, so starting from where we left off in September of 2024, that is my best guess for when these preseason issues took place, because according to Cosmopolitan, they started filming season 2 in October of 2024, and they finished season 1 around this time. First, we discovered a little tea from season 1. Jesse shared this on the Shenanigans podcast. Apparently, it was cut from the season. I don't know, I guess the producers thought that it wouldn't come back. Fools. So let's get into that. As you may recall, Jessie has a hair empire. Also important to note is that Jessie met all of the other women through Whitney, who was actually her first client of all of them. I may have said this in my previous video, but I don't remember, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself. But during season 1, there was a little drama that was cut where some of the girls had gone to Jessie to get their hair done and then later went to Hair by Chrissy, who is just another influencer, celebrity hairstylist. And Jessie was very hurt by it. I think because there was some like discounted or free services probably involved on one or both sides of that. So then Jessie had done extensions, red, lots of different looks on Whitney over the span of like a month or so. So a lot of work. And she had an appointment with Whitney set up for right before the show started. But she no-showed that appointment with Jessie and instead went to another stylist, had her extensions taken out, chopped her hair, and then showed up to set with this like new look, which Jessie obviously knew that she had done with another stylist who she basically stood her up for. So she was very pissed off by that. So keep this context in mind. It will come back later. And one other piece of information that we have learned since on Jessie and Mikayla's episode of the Vile Files is that before the season 1 finale, apparently Demi pitched an idea to the group for a fake storyline where she had an affair with Dakota. Everyone was reacting as I am now. Huh? Excuse me? What the hell? Obviously nobody was on board, so everyone is looking at her a little funny for that one moving forward. Now, heading into the season, before they can even start filming, there are some heated contract negotiations. It seems like they all went into this next season wanting to renegotiate, wanting to make more money. So they had a big group call with all of the castmates and their lawyers and their management teams. Before that call, though, the women had a discussion where they all agreed that they were going to say, we want X amount of money, and if we don't all get it, then we're all going to walk. They were bluffing, but that's a tactic. However, Jessie wasn't there for that conversation. She also wasn't there for the beginning of this big group call with the lawyers and the management teams. I feel like we were being a bit short-sighted, not cluing her in on everything. So when Jessie gets on this call with the teams and the lawyers, she gets on late, and all she hears is Brett saying, well, we're all gonna walk if you don't give us X amount. She chimes in, actually not me. Whoa, wait a second. Don't speak for me. I'm not interested in doing that, because she doesn't know that they're bluffing. And that's not her fault. But Demi and Brett are very pissed off by it anyways, because they wanted to present a united front, so to speak, and she's ruining that for them. So at that point, Demi said, fine, fuck you. We will ask for more, and not only will we ask for more, that more will include kicking you off the show. Yes. You're hearing me correctly. Demi wanted to kick Jessie off so that all of the other girls could make more money. And she tried to get the rest of the group on board with this. It didn't really work, though. All that happened, really, was that it made her friendship with Jessie way worse, because why are you trying to axe me from our show? I'm sure Jessie was wondering that to herself, and that would be a very valid concern in your friendship. Additionally, she kind of hurt her relationships with the other girls, partly because they did not love the way that she was talking about her best friend, Jessie, saying, I don't want to be a pawn in Jessie's hair scheme. She has no morals and values. Very harsh critic for, again, who is supposed to be your best friend. And partly because they were not liking some of the more general comments she was saying. Like, she said apparently that she doesn't want to work like a dog, had these like crazy unrealistic salary expectations. They just felt like she was coming off as greedy. Personally, I don't mind somebody not wanting to work like a dog. Feels fair enough to me. I think setting some work boundaries is healthy. And I also don't really have a problem with her trying to milk a giant entertainment company for all they're worth. They are worth billions, probably. They have the money. They have the money for that crazy unrealistic salary expectation. So I don't know. I don't mind that. What I do mind is going after your best friend and trying to axe her from the show to get more money. Hurt the corporation, not the citizen. And apparently after this, Demi was telling Jessie that she would need to win her friendship back because they lost all of that money all because of her. But they definitely got more money. They definitely got more money, just maybe not as much as Demi wanted. And I, of course, also see that while the entertainment company is probably worth billions of dollars, these women are also making a very large sum of money. So at some point, maybe we are getting a little greedy. what are you going to do with that extra money? I just want to know. Needless to say, we already have tensions unfolding before we even get into the season, so we are set up for some pretty good entertainment. And yes, it is also their lives, but the way that these are edited in the season and even somewhat outside of the season, I see them more as like actresses playing characters. Are those characters based on their real personalities and their real lives? For sure. But when you're a celebrity and you're on a reality television show, there's always going to be underlying motivations and goals, even if the person that you're playing is just a caricaturized version of yourself. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's actually probably better for their mental health that way, but just a reminder that we don't know who these women really are. We're just discussing what we have seen of them very selectively on a reality television show and on social media. Getting into the season, since the girls are now famous, we have to keep up with all of the gossip that is being said about them and put that into the timeline. They're also all still influencers, so therefore they refuse to save the drama for the TV screen. So we also have to keep up with what they're doing on social media and put that into the timeline. It gets messy. It's a lot. So that being said, I am going to be selective about what I choose to include because every piece of gossip, every bit of like internet shade, it's not all relevant, not all true, not all interesting even. And I do think that producers and the girls realize that being dramatic online is going to boost their ratings. So maybe there's some exaggerations, some purposefully dramatic moments or purposefully cryptic comments that are meant to keep us entertained in between seasons and are fun, but maybe not for a recap video. We are going to start with some gossip on the internet though. On October 5th, Steph with the Deets on TikTok. If you follow the drama, I am sure you have seen her so many times before. If you don't follow the drama, you've probably never seen her. But she keeps up with their ongoings. She posts a message that she received or acquired somehow about Jen and Zach. Now, I will say that the person who is giving us this insider information clearly has a bias against Jen, in my opinion. But anyways, they said that Zach had postponed medical school after they moved to New York and then Arizona for it, and this was due to mental health reasons. Apparently, his family was concerned that he would commit. And not to Jen. Commit to the afterlife. However, he was on the program for the white coat ceremony, although he didn't show up to the ceremony, and some people suggested that maybe he's taking classes online and just laying low because everybody hates him. They also claimed that Jen was lying about some stuff on the show, namely that she was paying for Zach's medical school. They said that was not true, and also that her mother worked in the same hospital as Zach's dad. And we do know that the bit about paying for medical school was clarified by Zach and Jen as well. Jen was not paying for it. His parents are paying for it. And finally, they also claimed that Jen's daughter has some speech issues, but Jen is just too busy influencing to care about it. I have no idea if there's any validity to that, and I don't plan on speculating on her child. In October, Jen is also starting to post many cryptic videos, some implying that she's leaving Zach, some implying that they're still together. And although we do get some photos taken by onlookers of them at Disney World, some might say that means they're back together. Some might just say that's good co-parenting. Now, in episode 1 of season 2, which again, I believe they started filming around October, so around the time of these cryptic posts, we see Jen and Zach right after the Chippendale scandal, and she texted the girlies to ask them to please not talk about it online, not participate in any of the gossip around it, because things are really bad for her right now, and no one responded. No one responded. But the news is, they're separated. They're separated. It did take a second, though. First, she did move with him to go to med school, but then she decided to initiate a break and move back to Utah. Only problem is, now Zach is back on her doorstep and begging for a second chance. As we knew he would be. But I'm still disappointed to see it. However, he has taken some real steps. He is in therapy now, which regardless of what happens with them, is definitely good for him. And Jen is very clear that if they're going to continue to try with this marriage, it will be a marriage of equals. Equals. And shockingly, he is ready to respect that and let her live her life. But I will say her attitude does seem to fall a little bit too strongly onto the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, you will be considering all of my feelings first, And I will be going to Chippendales if I want to, doing anything that upsets you if I want to. I choose mom talk. He has decided he's okay with that reversal though, because he really wants to fight for their marriage. So much so that he has taken a pause on med school to try and make their marriage work. And he's apologized to all of the girls via voicemail, which, by the way, they all took as complete BS. But he did do that. He did apologize, technically. And he has even stepped away from the church to focus on being true to himself. And I do find it just a little bit interesting that he decided to take a break from the church in order to treat her better. Something about that is confirming my biases. I'll just say that. However, I will say he also mentions that he's embarrassed, and apparently some of the members of the church have been nasty to him. Well, you know, I can't say I blame him. But yes, it's true. This season is supposed to be his redemption arc. We'll see. Now, the first step for Jen in assessing whether she wants to continue to try with this marriage or not is apparently ketamine therapy for Zach. I think it's really just a test to see if he will push the church boundaries for her. And he does. But to be honest, from what they show us at least, it seems like they just napped. Is that normal for ketamine therapy? I wouldn't know. But afterwards, they do cry because basically they wish none of this had ever happened and they wish that they could just be happy together. It's an honest and real moment, but he still has more to do to prove his willingness to change. And that is going to include a conversation with Demi and Jesse. He really needs to settle everything with them. If you want to be my lover, you have got to get with my friends. And she does discuss the potential reunion of their marriage with the rest of Mom Talk at an influencer event that I'll talk about in a second. But basically she says that he's taking accountability, which is so amazing, especially considering all of his narcissistic traits. And she reiterates his narcissistic traits, which are not just based on the way he was raised, but are also genetic. And I don't know if that's true, but I do know that those comments are going to bite her in the ass. Because Zach was unaware for some time that his wife had called him narcissistic multiple times on Hulu. I'm sure that was a pretty unpleasant surprise for him. That's fair enough. I mean, if it's not true, that is a pretty bold cut at your husband. If it is true, I guess maybe he was hoping you would respect his HIPAA rights. Should she care how he feels about it? Who am I to say? Do I care how he feels about it? I don't know the man, so again, I can't say. What I am simply trying to express is that I can understand why he might not have been super happy with that turn of events. However, she did say in her Vile Files episode with Zach that she does not take back any of those things that she said about his narcissistic tendencies, and she wasn't just saying them to go along with whatever the girls were saying. No, she had been bottling up those feelings for some time, and it was just good for her to be able to express them and be validated in them. We all know I'm not on his side, but I can't really say I'm on Jen's side either. I'm rarely on anybody's side in these shows because I don't know them. And while Jen was posting those cryptic videos in October, Taylor was also pissing me off because she posted something that was like, due to personal reasons, I'll be going back to the man I said I'm done with. But in episode 1, we're at Mayci's for a confrontation between Taylor and Jenna to get to the bottom of everything. In case you forgot, Jenna was the girl that Dakota was seeing at the same time that he was starting a relationship with Taylor when they were not yet exclusive. So the problem isn't really that he was seeing her, it's that he was hiding it from Taylor when she specifically asked for and he agreed to transparency around those things. And he also lied about aspects of it when it came out initially. But Taylor still has very little information on it because she doesn't really know Jenna and she can't really trust Dakota's account of it. Luckily, Mayci does know Jenna, vaguely, but more importantly, she's ready to get to the bottom of this. Hence, facilitating a meeting between the two of them at her home. And I just have to say, when Jenna came in, she's smiling ear to ear, like the Cheshire Cat. And I'm sure that it's just because she's feeling uncomfortable, she's feeling awkward. Totally get that. It's super off-putting. It's super off-putting. And you know what? Hey, who hasn't been a little off-putting in their time? I know I have many, many times. Let's hear it for the off-putting girls. To her credit, she does immediately hand over her phone to Taylor and answers any questions that she has. So Taylor is fully just going through her phone. And out of all of the stuff that I'm sure Taylor read on Jenna's phone, honestly, the most upsetting part to her is that Jenna was getting the boyfriend experience from Dakota. Meanwhile, Taylor was getting side chick treatment. And he also told Jenna that he was just hanging out with Taylor for clout when she confronted him about seeing both of them, while at the same time he was telling Taylor that Jenna was initiating everything. And that just ain't true. Basically, it's all bad news for Taylor. So she calls him up, she calls Dakota up and says, "You're done. You are done. You're so done. You're so finished. We're done." Flash forward a bit, her mother shows up with a new face, by the way, and she is unable to show her daughter any emotion. And not just because of the facelift. She has no sympathy. She wants her to keep this loser around. And because of that, Taylor decides maybe she's not 100% done with him just yet. So I guess that's why she posted that story that completely ruined my day. But it's not all bad news because she does tell him to get the hell out. Because she needs to be out from under his stupid thumb for a while. And of course, from Dakota's perspective, I'm guessing mostly because he's facing the consequences of his actions, he's filled with regret. He just can't understand why, oh why, did I continually lie and hide things? I have guesses, but they're not nice things to say on the internet. I will also say, though, that Bryce, my wonderful and smart fiance, did bring up that because, and I think Dakota says this later, that he is a former addict, so it's very ingrained in him to hide things. That's like a very learned behavior for him. It's not an excuse, but it's a little bit of an explanation that did give me a little bit more context in my mind. I think that might be a little bit of what's going on. Again, not an excuse. Still don't like you. And unfortunately, he has decided to fight for her. Not another redemption arc. Please, God, not another redemption arc. Can we just have one storyline on television where the man wrongs her and she doesn't go back? I haven't seen any. I'm not even kidding. I can't think of one. Moving on from the toxic relationships to the toxic friendships, let's talk about that influencer event that I mentioned earlier. Whitney hasn't made any apologies. She has unfollowed or blocked all of them on social media. She's no longer a part of Mom Talk. But here she is at a cowboy-themed influencer event with them anyways. About to pop, by the way. She is heavily pregnant. But Whitney isn't even the biggest entrant. It's Miss Miranda. Miranda. She is freshly divorced and she is ready to get her ass back in Mom Talk. And she swears up and down that there was no sleeping with each other in that whole swinging scandal that she had with Taylor. Nobody was sleeping with each other. It was all innocent. It was just innocent little smooches, smoochy girls, one might say, until of course Taylor broke the rules and slept with McKenna's man. But that's not on Miranda. She maintains her innocence. Now it's time for Miranda's interlude, so we can introduce her and add a bit of extra swinging scandal information that we didn't have previously. So as we know, Miranda was part of the swinging scandal, but before then, she was actually best friends with Taylor for like 5 years prior, and she said it was a very regular, normal friendship. That is, of course, until they all got way too up in each other's business and relationships. As I mentioned in my previous video, Miranda wasn't really as into it as the other girls were, and she did say in her Viophiles interview that her and Chase were not doing all of the things that Taylor and McKenna were. And apparently, after Taylor and McKenna took things a little bit farther, she told Miranda about it and asked her if she might be interested in doing similar activities, and Miranda said, no, I'm good, because none of your husbands are Michael B. Jordan. Okay, fair enough. And taste as well. It's kind of a universal taste, but it's taste nonetheless. And she also said about that infamous cabin trip that they took, that after the first night, she made up an excuse and left, because she didn't want to be there anymore. Chase, I guess, did want to still be there, because he stayed the second night, but she was feeling ew and regretful, so she went home, and she says that that was the last time that they did any swinging behavior. And she also spoke about how she was uncomfortable numerous times prior to that. She just didn't speak up for herself, didn't say anything, and just went along with the scheduled events. But she's clearly regretful about everything. According to her, her marriage was not in a good place. They were not doing good relationship-wise, obviously, if Chase was staying the second night without her at that cabin. But she was also apparently having a faith crisis, so just overall not her best time period. And honestly, it seems like she's very embarrassed by like the kind of high school antics of it all, that it has that air to it. She also discussed the allegations that her ex-husband Chase confessed feelings for Taylor at the gym on her Viall Files episode. But she tells us that Chase's story at the time was that he told Taylor that they should all halt the swinging actions before people get feelings, and that she had just misinterpreted that as him saying that he had feelings for her. And at the time, she chose to believe her husband, partially because the other option was obviously devastating, but also because apparently Taylor had been giving off I heart stealing husbands and getting attention kind of vibes. She specifically cites an instance when Taylor told Chase about a sex dream that she had about him, also at the gym. Guys, stop working out. The gym is no longer safe. Oh, and by the way, that sex dream will be coming back. Don't worry. As we know from my previous video, Miranda initially denied all involvement in the swinging scandal, and basically from what she tells Nick Viall, that was because she wasn't really perceiving what they were doing. And so when the allegations came out, she was like, who, me? No, that's not me. That's not what I was doing. And if it was, like hell will I be telling y'all. So why is Miranda ready to come forward now? Well, for one, everything's already out there. She might as well get paid for it. But she also said that she knew that if she was in season 1, her divorce would have been the storyline, which she did not want. Plus, since her and Taylor were not on good terms, she knew that the other storyline she would have would involve a lot of forced interaction with Taylor to try and settle things, and she needed some space and time. However, the producers approached her again after season 1, and this time she took the opportunity. She's now divorced, and she stepped away from the church, but honestly, more than anything, it seems like she's taken that time to process, to reflect, and she's now ready to reap the rewards of the shitstorm that she went through. As she should, honestly. There is still some complications in the air, though. One, because her parents are not really on board with the reality show. They are quite conservative. And also because post-swinging scandal, she is actually now quite close with McKenna. Allegiances have shifted. And another piece of information to know about the group dynamics with Miranda potentially coming back to Mom Talk. On October 19th, screenshots were posted to Reddit saying that Chase, her ex-husband of swinging scandal fame, had briefly been seeing Layla after they got divorced. And this is confirmed true. This is confirmed true, by the way. It will only get weirder with Chase in the future. We're not really going to get there this season, but just keep an eye on him. I hate saying that because I do think he wants us to keep an eye on him. If you recall, he was very bitter about not being invited to the season 1 premiere. But unfortunately, he has very much made himself a character in this show. So we will have to keep an eye out. Always keep an eye out for Selena. Also, always keep an eye out for Chase. Damn it. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is. That concludes Miranda's introduction interlude. Now let's get back to her being reintroduced to Mom Talk in season. So after the influencer event, Miranda meets up with Whitney because they were friends prior because of Mom Talk. She actually is the person who brought Whitney into Mom Talk in the first place. And they're kind of kindred spirits at the moment because they're both on the outskirts of the group. People are very suspicious of them, but Miranda does have a plan. She is planning to host a happy hour to kind of smooth things over with the girls. Because the group consensus at the moment is that she's just crawling back for the cash, the reality TV cash. And would it be so bad if she were? That's my question. But you may be wondering what the women think about her at this time. Jessie, she wants to hear her side out of pure curiosity. Demi does not give a shit, really, but she does want her and Taylor to have it out, probably also just for the entertainment value. Jen is more on the side of supporting her. She wants to be welcoming and nice. And Layla, Mikayla, and Mayci all are fully Team Taylor. They think that Miranda is just being so desperate. She does get a really good turnout to her cocktail hour. Everyone's showing up, but Mayci and Mikayla are quick to be like, cut the bullshit. What is going on right now? Why are you here? What do you want? So now it's time for Miranda to say her piece. And she admits that she initially denied the whole swinging scandal because she was ashamed. It was embarrassing. But now she's seeking understanding and forgiveness from these women. Taylor's issue, though, is actually not really the denial. It's more so that she felt like Miranda turned her back on her. And also, she's offended that Miranda would think that she was trying to seduce her husband. All she did was tell him she had a sex dream about him. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of inappropriate. But I understand. I have a different sense of boundaries. And as she noted, they were all hooking up anyways. She essentially also says that she thinks that Chase is just super obsessed with her, and that's why he hates her now, because he can't have her. She says that to Miranda's face. Despite that shockingly blunt and unnecessarily hurtful comment, in my opinion at least, Taylor does admit that she made a mistake by not telling Miranda immediately and not telling Miranda first, letting everybody else know, and then she gets to find out looking a total fool. And she also acknowledges that she thinks that the rest of the girls are not considering that Miranda was not the only bad friend in this scenario. Taylor was also not being an amazing friend to her. Miranda chooses not to acknowledge all of the bits about her ex, and she mainly just says, listen, this was a very traumatic event for me. It was really, really hurtful. I lost my best friend and my husband, and I don't want my husband back, but I do want my friend back and my friend group. And Taylor does seem to also just want to move on and be friends again with everybody, really. She's even giving some empathy to Whitney because the internet absolutely hates her, and she knows what that feels like. She's being a real Mother Teresa this episode. I know Mother Teresa is probably absolutely cursing me from heaven for drawing that comparison. It's just a figure of speech, Teresa. I'm going to need you to chill. But all this wonderful olive branch stuff, it's not enough for Jessie. Not enough for Jessie, who wanted the full details of the swinging scandal. She wanted the insider info, and she was not able to receive that. So she's going to make it everybody's problem very soon. She has a plan, and we will talk about it a bit later. In my opinion, she is definitely putting her nose in other people's business, and she should probably stay out of it. If they're ready to move on, let them. You don't need to know all the details, but this is reality TV, so I'm happy to just go along with it and find out and see what happens. But on the subject of getting swinging scandal details out into the open, Jessie was not the only architect here, because around this time, McKenna, whose name I believe I spelled wrong in my last video, but the now ex-wife, obviously, of Brayden, who is the one that slept with Taylor, they were key players in that whole swinging scandal. She made a sudden reappearance online to share her story around this time. And because these events took place years ago, and also they're really not relevant to the plot of season 2, I'm just going to label this as like an early intermission, and then we can get back to the filming timeline after we get this information. And if you don't care about it, I'm sure there will be a timestamp. But honestly, I would stay and listen because it's very interesting, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't waste my breath. So this all starts on October 21st when McKenna gets on TikTok and says she's going to start discussing her divorce and the events that led up to it. Then a couple days later, she posts on TikTok again a video with a screenshot from Reddit that was speculating that her and her husband were part of the swinging scandal. She confirms, yes, they were. And she said, at the time she was going through a divorce, she had young kids, and she wasn't an influencer. So she's taken accountability in her personal life, but she really had no obligation to share with us. Now she would like to share with the class, but at the time she had no obligation, and I completely agree with her on that. Now the rest of the TikToks that I'm summarizing were actually posted a little later in the timeline, but seeing as they're referencing events that happened years ago, we're just going to keep going with her story real quick. Basically, before the swinging scandal, their relationship was already at doomsday. He was lying to her about paychecks not going through, which was due to the fact that he was lying to his company, saying that McKenna had died so that he could collect life insurance, also known as fraud. And she found out because the company called her and then the whole thing unraveled. Some people did speculate online that perhaps his plan was to actually make the McKenna died thing true. Perhaps he wanted to off her because a lot of true crime cases do start that way. I can't say that. I don't know. That's complete speculation. All I do know is new fear for me is definitely unlocked. And she did leave him after that, but she did get back together with him. I try not to be judgmental. She has kids. Still wouldn't be me, but she said that she wanted to tell herself that it was all just a dumb mistake. And our brain, it really will tell us anything in times of crisis. But her and her husband got into therapy, so maybe they're on the up and up. Until she started to think, is this man cheating? She was getting the vibes, but she didn't want to believe it. However, perhaps she should have, because it was true. She found the messages while they were on a family trip with her side of the family, like her parents. That is tough. Now, in this case, her gut feeling was correct. But I do just want to say, because as an anxiety girly, as an OCD girly, I know that there are some girls out there who are listening to this and thinking now that their partners are cheating on them. But perhaps your gut feeling is not your amazing intuition. Perhaps it is anxiety and intrusive thoughts. So let's just think about that. Do we have any evidence? If we don't have evidence, we don't need to believe everything that our mind says at all times. Just a shout out to my girlies out there. So after this trip, they went to the Mormon church for help. I guess you think if the therapist wasn't enough, maybe we can put the fear of God into him. I don't know. And she does say that the church leader was the issue here, not the church. She's not going to blame the church, but the church leader certainly blamed her. He basically did that whole trick of something must be missing if he was looking elsewhere. Not a valid excuse. Not a valid excuse, but she did believe it because she had trauma goggles on. After telling us this, she then gets into the swinging scandal, specifically the day after Taylor and her husband hooked up. So apparently what happened was Tate came and picked up Taylor from wherever Taylor and Brayden were and took her home, and then Brayden went home to McKenna. He was not admitting everything at first, unlike Taylor, who immediately spilled the beans. But when she came back to the house later that day, he did admit that they kissed. So we obviously know way more happened. He's doing the breadcrumbs of truth method. It's very Dakota of him. And then, according to her story, I just want to make clear that I guess I don't know for sure, but this is what she said. Later, Miranda called her and told her that Taylor had just admitted to sleeping with her husband. So, at this point, she confronts her husband about it. What else is he gonna do? He's caught. So he admits to it, and then she's like, oh, I'm done with this. I'm done with this. So she goes over to Miranda's house. She's crying. Miranda's consoling her. At this point, Tate shares some more information with them, basically just relaying everything that Taylor has been admitting to him because she is being very forthright with the information. Supposedly, Taylor and Brayden had been meeting up in the Home Depot parking lot. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. In the Home Depot parking lot. They had been meeting up there for some time. They were telling each other they loved each other. In the Home Depot parking lot. They were making plans to leave their relationships for each other. In the Home Depot parking lot. It's just a little bit funny. Anyways, McKenna calls her husband to confirm all of this. He admits to it. So then she was like, oh, I'm really done now. And that was the end of their marriage. And we love to see a woman escape. So yay for her. And all of this was posted to TikTok. So if you think that Taylor was not going to be responding to this, I need you to put down whatever second screen you have going right now. I guess I'm the second screen. Put down the first screen. I am not your mistress. We will not be meeting in the Home Depot parking lot. You need to lock in, okay? Because Taylor absolutely had some stuff to say. Now, this does happen later in the filming timeline, but again, I'm putting it in here. It belongs here. We're keeping the storyline smooth. But I will let you know later in the filming timeline when this is actually happening. So, Taylor posted a TikTok where she says, she was one of the instigators and sent her husband to get me, but tell your side, sis. And this TikTok also includes a video of her and McKenna kissing, as well as a screenshot of a text from McKenna that says she wishes she was kissing her. Now, McKenna hits back, specifically wanting to discuss the text message, the screenshot of the text message saying she wants to kiss her, or she wishes she was kissing her. And she claims that this was actually sent by her ex-husband from her phone, and then he deleted it off of her phone so that she couldn't see it. But joke's on him because she, like me, has an iPad. And you can see all of the text messages on your iPad, even the ones that somebody secretly deletes off your phone. So she was able to view that. And this does add up, considering that in the screenshot that we see, after Taylor replies, you see that McKenna replied in the morning saying, what did I send? Was it a voice message? Because she couldn't see it. However, she then says that there is more to the story from the night that that text message was sent. And she shows us more messages, more screenshots from that thread before the kissing text. She said that she was telling her husband how much she missed Taylor and wished that she was here, which is what prompted Brayden to send the text message to Taylor from her phone. She goes on to say that she does not want to be painted as a bisexual because she is not one. God forbid! God forbid. But seriously, it does seem to be her major concern here with Taylor's whole information leak. I don't really know what she thought showing us those extra text messages was going to do for her, but in my opinion, it didn't really help her case, because now I'm thinking, okay, perhaps Brayden did send the message from your phone, but he was sending it as you. Like, it was supposed to be from McKenna based on the things that you were telling him about how much you miss Taylor. Like when your friend grabs your phone and texts your crush for you. Not to imply, of course, that she has a crush on Taylor, because that would make her a bisexual, and God forbid. And then somehow that message got deleted from McKenna's phone. Now, my little theory is that perhaps McKenna was drunk and did not think it was funny when Brayden sent that text, because that would imply that she's bisexual, God forbid. So she went to try and delete it / unsend it, hoping Taylor would not see it, because she didn't want Taylor to think that she was like super into her and bisexual, God forbid. That's my little conspiracy theory. I don't know. Only the Mormon God knows what everyone's true intentions were in that scenario. I just had to go down like a 20-minute rabbit hole figuring out what was wrong with my audio, because I watched it back and it was like this horrible, like I was giving y'all tinnitus, and I don't want to do that. And I don't know currently, in the current moment, if I'm going to have fixed those clips or not, or re-recorded them, or giving y'all tinnitus. Who's to say? I did realize that the culprit was my phone case. Yeah, camera reveal. I am filming these on my phone. I'm not made of money. This is not my full-time job. If anyone would like to pay for a camera for me, I'm all ears. But until then, we're doing iPhone camera, and it's not so bad, guys. You're probably looking at this and thinking, yes, it is. Well, this is what we have for now. Anyways, I really apologize if there was audio issues and you suffered for it. But maybe that will not be the case. I hope not. Moving on though, McKenna then showed us text messages where she discussed having a moral hangover, and then she claims that she said that they were not going to swing anymore, and they didn't. She also says that the kissing was just something that they did for their husbands because they thought it was hot. It wasn't something she enjoyed. No, because that would make her bisexual, God forbid. And I believe her. Yeah. Now, regarding Taylor's assertion that McKenna had told her ex to pick Taylor up, remember she said, she told her husband to come and pick me up. That one's a slam dunk for McKenna, because that's an easy one to answer. He's not telling the truth. Did you really think that he was being honest with you when he said that? He's lying. He's just saying whatever he thinks sounds best, whatever works for him. And after that, their interactions seem to have fizzled out. So we are done with the little McKenna intermission. Let's get back to the filming timeline. We are at episode 2. I actually am mixing in a little bit of episodes 2 and 3 together here. And that's just because I'm the storyteller here. And so I make the decisions that I think are best for the narrative. It's not that important to know which episode is which. So Dakota is invited to a family barbecue by Taylor's parents at their house. And that is because they want her to get back with him. Taylor arrives first, though, and she mentions this Halloween party that's coming up that she'll be going to. This is hosted by Jesse. This is Jesse's plan to get more information. She does not even say what her costume is, and her dad is already shaming her in advance. Her mom, on the other hand, just wants an invite. She just wants an invite because she wants to see her buddies, Chase and Miranda. Yes, Chase and Miranda will be in attendance. Yeah. And also, Taylor's mom still interacts with them. Apparently, this is because she was their realtor. I'm going to need you, madam, to get a grip and take them off your CRM. Let's support our daughter instead. Before Dakota's arrival, her parents are also trying to subtly imply, not very subtly though, that she still has feelings for Dakota and they shouldn't quit on it. And then Dakota gets there and they go outside to eat. And that is when the real shit starts. I don't even want to call it drama because it is something way worse. Immediately, her family is saying that they're so tired of the on again, off again, but clearly they have a preference for on versus off. They're also telling Taylor that she's just not giving this enough effort. Why would she give this any of her effort? And that's what she says. She's like, why would I? Do I need to remind you of all of the stuff that he's done to me? And she does remind them that he was going on dates with Jenna and then sleeping with Taylor that same night. So then her dad's response to that is to shame her. And they are all attacking her. Her parents, Dakota, some random brother who shouldn't even be there at all. And they're all saying, oh, well, you were asking for it. You can't be surprised that he thought you were trash when you were asking him to come over at night when the sun was down. And you just need to sacrifice. You just need to sacrifice and take him back and be miserable. She responds to all of this by saying, listen, I understand that I had no self-respect at the time and I wasn't acting with self-respect, but he also knew that. He knew that I was at my lowest and he was taking advantage of that. And I can't say for sure that that was his intentions, but it is hard to believe the best of him after seeing him dogpile on her like that. Like, if he's such a good guy, such a good partner, why is he not acting like one? Because a good partner, when your parents and your family are attacking you and calling you names, hey, they would defend you. You're not a good partner. And none of these people deserve her presence, deserve to be near her, or deserve any of her fame, except her sister, who steps in and says, no, y'all are legit crazy, because these people absolutely shouldn't be together. The household that they would be raising this child in would be so unstable and so unhealthy. They are toxic for each other. It's best for the child that they be apart. And then later on, if they're healed, they could come back together peacefully. But right now, for the sake of the child, be apart. Of course, her mother then shuts her down so that they can pray over the meal, in which she basically prays for them to get back together. I don't have one good thing to say about this woman. My prayer is that she gets what she deserves. And speaking of prayer and religion, Taylor does say that she thinks that her whole situation, her whole mess, is punishment from God, like karma for cheating and the swinging scandal. But her family insists that God is not like that. I don't know. I wouldn't be so sure. I think maybe we should take a quick peek at the Old Testament, reference those scriptures a little bit, and we might find that Taylor might be onto something there. That's just my little quip, though. I am not a religious scholar, not here to be a religious scholar. We can move on to Zach, Demi, and Jesse. I'm sure that'll be fun. They all meet up. He apologizes for the whole Chippendales thing. He admits his hypocrisy. He even says that he appreciates them calling him out in a way because he's changing. However, he would also like to correct that he did not gamble away his medical school money. And they're like, that's interesting because Jen told us that. And they basically say, listen, the reason that we're so concerned, the reason that we're so anti-Zach is because of the things that Jen tells us, like about your gambling and your narcissism. So when Zach gets home, he tells Jen all of this and she is pissed because she feels like things are blowing up in her face, kind of. He's shockingly calm, although he does tell her that she should just stop venting to her friends. She should not do that. She should continue venting to her friends. But if she's lying, she should stop that. So they all have to get together to clarify all of the information. What's true, what's not. And I do want to say, because I don't know if I put it in my script, but I understand Jen in a way. I don't think she has any malicious intent with the lying. I think it was more things snowballing out of control, things maybe being insinuated, and her just like agreeing. I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that she is in a very stressful situation, very much between a rock and a hard place, where her friends hate her husband hates her friends, and she wants to vent to both of them about the other, but it's kind of impossible without them villainizing each other. And I think she's scared of both of them, to be honest, and their reactions, and to go against them or like contradict them in any way. So I just want to say that I have empathy for her, as well as thinking that she should stop lying. Honesty is best policy, but it's hard sometimes, and I understand why she's afraid. So like I said, they all get together to clarify what's true, what's not. Let's all get on the same page. Jen claims she did not only speak negatively about him, which, like, sure, fair enough. You didn't speak negatively about him 100% of the time, just 97%. But hey, if he deserved it, and she's also forced to admit that he did not, in fact, gamble away his medical school money, putting that to bed, finally. They also bring up Jen saying that she didn't feel supported by the girls after their split, despite them reaching out. You can really tell that Zach is in therapy, because he says something to the effect of, I understand why you thought your actions were supportive, but my wife didn't feel supported. Like, he's very much, he's gotten some tools under his tool belt. But Jesse is like, why then did you only respond to my many supportive text messages and voice memos with just like Thanks, girly, and nothing else. Why are you forcibly separating yourself and isolating? To me, I'm like, hey, mental illness is a mystery. But Jen claims it was actually because they were spreading all of the details of her venting all around town and the internet too, and so she didn't really feel like she could tell them anything. Very fair. Then Jen makes the very messy choice to bring up Italy, what happened in Italy, and Demi coming to her for support afterwards. Now, what happened in Italy? Well, they went to the Vanderpump Villa, and one of the cast members slash hotel workers, I guess they're a bit of both, this man, Marciano, was apparently flirting with Demi. She said that she handled it the best she could and that her and Brett do not have any issues. But Jen said that she was told Brett was in tears. Now, we will hear a lot more about this later. It's only touched on really lightly in the season until the end and in the reunion and the press tour. And then we kind of get an actual story. And it is a huge point of contention going into season 3 even. What I do want to point out, though, is that while the events of the Vanderpump Villa were actively unfolding, Jen told Mikayla that she was very unhappy, that she felt like Demi was dragging her relationship through the mud for a storyline on season 1 and beyond season 1. And she vowed that if Demi continued doing that in season 2, she would drag Demi's relationship through the mud using the information from Vanderpump Villa. But again, this does end up being like more of a end of season, post season, season 3 drag. But Jen, she will always come to collect. So I mentioned Jessie's messy plan earlier, and it's finally time to discuss it. She is having a Halloween party, and she wants to invite Miranda, as well as Miranda's ex-husband Chase and his new girlfriend. She says on a Vile Files episode post-season that she's actually friends with Chase's girlfriend, so she was really just like being a pushover and wanting to be inclusive. But the reason that she gives the cameras is that she wants everybody to work it out, aka she's looking to light a fuse. Plus, Jessie has a plan for her and Demi's husbands, as well as a real Chippendales dancer, to do a performance for everybody with special attention on Jen, so that Zach can show us how mature he is now. All of these fantastically horrible ideas, and they're all just to entertain us. Don't you feel special? Meanwhile, Layla just wants to show off her new body and show off her new man. So the big night arrives. Jen and Zach are dressed as the famous Afflecks that, again, Zach is 90% sure they are not related to. Just a bit his family was doing that Jen is running with. And again, I support her running with the bit. Jessie and Jordan have also decided to dress as the famous Afflecks, just a different version, a different outfit. I'm sure production coordinated that all for them. Otherwise, they need to do a better job of coordinating through production. It's one or the other. I don't know. Oh, and Taylor is dressed in the same catsuit that I wore one year in college. Needless to say, she looked a lot better in it than I did. But it was fun to see. And it's very much, this entire night is giving very, very much a high school party where like a lot of drama goes down. Entertaining, chaotic. You already know the vibes. When Chase shows up, he beelines directly for Dakota to immediately start talking about the swinging scandal, how bad it was for him, how his parents didn't know that he had left the church yet, how everybody assumes that him and Taylor slept together. And they're not being discreet talking about Taylor either. They are legitimately pointing at her. So we all know our bold girl Taylor is going to come right up and confront them about that. But Chase is real upfront about it. He's like, oh yes, we were absolutely talking about you, but I wasn't saying anything bad, just that I like you, I like your family. Unfortunately, we really trigger each other because we shared the worst experience of our lives together. To which Taylor says, and what was that? What was that worst experience of our lives? Again, she wants to be the narrator here. She knows that we're on a television show and she wants us to get the full information. So he's like, okay, obviously it was you revealing the entire swinging scandal to the whole world. She says, that's not what I thought it was, but I guess I won't expose you here. And then they get into a back and forth about what really happened that day at the gym, because Taylor says that she told him about a sex dream, and then he claims his response to her was also telling her about a sex dream he had. But she says, nuh-uh, Nelly. What she's implying happened is that he confessed that he had feelings for her. By the way, Dakota, still absolutely there, standing there with them. He's flip-flopping between who he thinks is lying. which really pisses Taylor off because she would like a partner who supports her no matter what. Although I do have to say, girl, he's not your man anymore. He may be your baby daddy, but you kicked him out. So he doesn't really have to side with you on everything anymore. Now, would it be a good idea for him to do that since he wants to be back in your life so bad? Yeah, it would be a really good idea for him to do that and show what a good partner he can be. But he's a dumbass, so that's not what's going to happen. Thank God Mayci is there to step in and stop them, and also to remind Chase, hey, so you actually came here with your girlfriend? She's still here. You're humiliating her, so much so that she's actually now crying and seeking comfort from your ex-wife and her new boyfriend. Layla, who also dated Chase for like a month, is very unimpressed, very secondhand embarrassed by all of this as well, so she makes fun of his podcast. She's too good. I love her. I love her. But at this point, Taylor has deviated her anger from Chase to Dakota. They are now finger pointing at each other, yelling at each other about who lied to who about what. Then Dakota exits while they scream at each other. And Miranda, Demi, and the rest of the party are all trying to get Chase to leave and stop causing drama, especially because his girlfriend has already left, crying and saying that she hates him. And I would too. Chase does eventually leave, and as he's on his way out, Demi makes some comment about him neglecting his girlfriend, to which he replies, where's Brett? Like, I think telling her to mind her own business, and he touches her on his way out. This will be a controversial moment moving forward. Many people think that Demi was being overdramatic, that this was really just a tap of acknowledgement from Chase, or maybe at worst, like sassy, kind of disrespectful, but certainly not what Demi thought it was, which was aggressive. And she also says that nobody should be touching anybody without consent, which is true. It is true. But did it warrant her reaction? That's kind of more where the question is, because her reaction was to go and tell her husband, Brett, Peepaw as we know him, that Chase laid his hands on her. So Brett, with Jordan in tow, his little sidekick, they're both running to the front lawn to brawl. It doesn't get to that, thank God, because Peepaw is hitting the gym, okay? This would not have been a cute little fight. This would have been bloody, probably. But Chase does apologize. Phew, thank God. And then the cops show up, late as always. But luckily, both Chase and Dakota have already left, so no arrest this time around. And after all that, Jesse has the nerve to turn around and say, well, wait a second, we didn't get to find out what happened. We didn't get all the tea that I was promised. Why did I send these freaking invites? Girl, you have to read the room. We have to take a second and read the room every once in a while. And I will say also, I just want to I'll throw him this one little bone. While Chase was being very disruptive and a nuisance, first of all, he was just being a good employee to Hulu. But second of all, he did give us some amazingly funny moments that I am still referencing currently. Miranda yelling at him to leave while wearing crab claws because she's dressed like Mr. Krabs. Oh my God, so good. Pointing with the crab claw. Layla telling him to go and podcast about it, and then him replying, don't make fun of my podcast. I'm still using that bit. And it's barely even a bit because I kind of in a way have a podcast, guys. And it's so funny. Oh, and of course, Jordan running up on him on the lawn and yelling at him, take accountability, take accountability. Like, imagine a stripper version of Stuart Little runs up on you and starts lecturing you like that. How jarring. I mean, it's so good. Jesse and Demi decide that it is the perfect, or maybe worst possible, timing to do the Chippendales dance. Not them, but their husbands and a professional dancer, let's not forget. Striptease in the living room. And it doesn't matter if it's the worst or best timing. Those are the same thing on Hulu, and they're doing it. Jen and Zach, they do put on a good face, but they're obviously incredibly uncomfortable. They leave immediately afterwards, and apparently Zach was pissed off and took it out on Jen. We didn't see that on camera, but I mean, who wouldn't have seen that coming? We all knew that that was going to be the outcome here. He also asks Jen if she knew about the dance, and she says that she didn't, that they only jokingly mentioned it while she was getting her hair done, but she didn't think that they were serious. However, in her interview, she says she did know about it, but she didn't know that there would be a professional dancer. She didn't know that she would be the center of attention. And she was also just kind of like going along with her friends because she didn't want to like put a bad face on their relationship and make it seem like she was still having all these issues. And apparently she didn't think that Zach would care that much. Girl, this is your husband. You know the man. That's kind of his whole thing. Maybe she didn't think that he would be in her life by that point. Maybe she thought she would have the resolve to stay away from him, but that's not what happened. So now he just thinks that Jesse and Demi are horrible friends. They talk about it after, and she says it felt like Chippendales all over again, which he doesn't like because he feels like his progress is being discounted. So then he says, I need to stand up. I need to take a break. She says, no, 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 no. We're having this conversation. And if you walk away right now, you're not just walking away from the cameras, you're walking away from this marriage. I'm conflicted for sure on this because, on the one hand, under normal circumstances, I would feel like this was very unfair of Jen. Because I get that you want to resolve it, and I get that it sucks to stop in the middle, but it felt like it was a lot more to do with the cameras being there. And if somebody is trying to work on their response to conflict and they want to take that time and space to reflect and cool off, I feel like they should be given that, especially when the cameras are around. I'm sure that that elevates tensions. On the other hand, it may be that he would have continued without the cameras and would have snapped. Maybe she felt safer doing it with other people watching. Whatever the reason, unfortunately, things are about to get only more complicated. Because guess what? She's pregnant again. I just want to put this out here one time in case anyone needs to hear it. If you kind of hate your partner, please use protection. Anyways, I have a ton of sympathy for her on this. I mean, every time that I watch this clip, every time I even think about it, it makes me want to cry. I mean, it's so tough. Obviously, a very complex situation, and she's scared. She is so scared, and she has every right to be. I mean, and it also, I'm sure she very much wants this baby, but it kills me to think of that child seeing this footage one day. Not this footage of my video. If her child likes shitty YouTubers, more power to them. Okay, welcome to the channel. I meant the TV show, though. Another sad bit of this episode is that we learn more about Mikayla's backstory, which I've already mentioned. But basically, due to all of this trauma, she stores up a lot of her emotions, and it's really starting to negatively impact her health. The body keeps the score, as we know, but she is going through therapy to try and release some of this. On a lighter note, as we found out at the end of last season, Whitney was pregnant. She's now having the baby, and she is so glad that she forgave Connor. They worked through all their shit. This is kind of a reconciliation baby. Yay, happy family. She has also kind of reconciled, at least to some degree, with Mayci and Taylor because they both visit her after the baby is born. Awesome. Moving on. A bunch of the girls do a farm day with their kids, except Jen and Whitney, who are not in attendance. And we find out that Miranda has really struck up a friendship with Jen because she's kind of trying to get into everybody's good books, and she's supporting her in her marital struggles. And we do get a little bit more information on the Italy Vanderpump Villa fiasco. Based on the other girls' accounts, Demi was being flirty with the men, but nothing shady or over the top. And unfortunately, that's the extent of the discussion that we're going to get because we absolutely need to hash out the swinging scandal for the 1000th time. Sure, and this is at least a version that we have never gotten before. Miranda and Taylor, one-on-one, going through all of the facts. Miranda is adamant that the most she did was kiss. In a way, that's true. The most she did with anybody that was not her husband was kiss. But there was a 2 couples, 1 shower situation, a 2 couples, 1 bed situation, which, yes, they kept to their couples, but that's undeniably intimate. And while at the peak of the scandal, she certainly wasn't going to confess to any of that because there was pressure to keep her squeaky clean Mormon reputation and not embarrass her husband, she no longer has a husband or a relationship with the church. So she's kind of ready to just admit to everything and move on. And Miranda even said on her Vile Files interview post-season that her and Taylor are 100% aligned, on the same page on the whole swinging scandal timeline and facts now. Will they be the best friends that they once were ever again? Probably not. But they're also different people now, so everything is resolved. They're all good. Who Taylor is not all good with is, of course, Dakota. I'm sure it comes as a surprise to nobody that they are once again fighting. One could say still fighting. I mean, did they ever really stop? See, the thing is, she is sympathetic to his addiction struggles. I think to some degree she feels some sort of responsibility for his sobriety and his safety. Not saying that she should be responsible for his actions, but I think she just doesn't want to push him over the edge. She's still checking in on him, etc. And of course, they're also still co-parenting, so there is some necessary interaction there as well. But since they're still in each other's presence, they're of course still fighting. fighting as if there is a relationship on the table, mind you, which Taylor cannot confirm or deny, even though all of her friends are in her ear like, no, no. But she also has her parents in the other ear. So at this point, she isn't making any concrete decision. She's just going to therapy to fix all of her trauma. And personally, I do feel it's a very tall order for a therapist to try and heal your trauma while you're still interacting with the man regularly who gave you that trauma. And not to mention with your parents being so mean. And she's also making the choice to additionally do couples therapy with Dakota, which is making her feel better about resuming a relationship with him. But see, it's easy. It's very easy to pretend to be a wonderful, great, responsible, trustworthy person for 1 hour a week, a day, however it might be. We can pretend, okay? He's on a reality television show. He knows how to act. I just think we should be keeping that in mind. Personally, I think he's shown who he is. We have plenty of examples, and I am not saying that Taylor is innocent in all of this. No, 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 no. But she's the only one contemplating ending this toxic cycle, so that's why I feel like I speak as if I'm trying to reason with her. On the Zach and Jen end of things, Zach confronts Jordan and Brett about their whole Chippendales dance and claims that it was inappropriate, it was disrespectful, it was insensitive, and potentially even a harassment issue. But then once again, we find out that Jen has not been doing full disclosure, despite apparently swearing on their children's lives that she didn't know anything about the performance, because both men say that they told her what was going to happen and even gave her the option to include Zach, and she just chose not to. It's not a good look for Jen. We still don't like Zach, but it's not a good look for Jen either right now. We did get a small clip from the salon where they claim that they told Jen about it, and we also have both Jen and Demi's accounts from the show and also podcasts. So, Jen did say in her Vile Files episode that at the salon, she was telling the girls about how her and Zach are fully healed from the Chippendale situation, even though that's not 100% true. But she just wanted to cast their relationship in the best light, present a united front, all that. However, I don't know if that was in response to a question about their relationship from Jesse and Demi, or if she volunteered that fib. But either way, Jen said that's what prompted Demi to tell her about the whole Halloween plan. And from what she said, my understanding is that Jen was told that the husbands would be dressing up like Chippendales dancers and that they would be doing a performance, but that she was not fully aware that one, there would be a professional dancer, and two, that she would be the center of attention for the dance. There is definitely still debate over this though, because in the press tour, Demi was adamant that she did mention the professional dancer. Jen's other issue with all of this though is that she claims that discussing the Halloween plan was never on their docket for the salon visit. And by this, I'm assuming that she's referring to basically like stage directions from production about what things they should talk about while she's filming at the salon. And since this came up spontaneously, at least in Jen's mind, she's wondering if it hadn't come up organically, were they planning on telling me at all? Personally, I have a feeling that it was on the docket for Demi and Jesse. They just didn't put it on the docket for Jen so that they could elicit her genuine reaction to this idea. At the end of the day, everybody has their own kind of story about this whole Chippendales Halloween dance situation. But one thing we do know for sure, although the other women don't yet, is that Jen is knocked up. And this element has made it all the more pressing to make a decision about her and Zach's relationship moving forward. She feels that she's really struggling with this decision because she's not going to church right now, and so she doesn't have God to tell her what is right. To me, that kind of translates as, I don't currently have strict doctrine to follow, and therefore I now have to think for myself for the first time in my life. And I understand how that would be absolutely terrifying, honestly. She also can't talk to Demi and Jesse about her marriage issues anymore because they're tired of hearing all of the reasons that she should leave him when she refuses to do so. So her new confidant is Miranda, who is recently divorced. Happily, might I add, so she can really pick her brain about what that experience might be like. Now, of course, Taylor and Jen's toxic situations have really been the main focus for romance in this show so far, but throughout this season, we're going to start sharing the wealth a little bit in that category. So, remember how Mayci found out about Jenna and Dakota via her Instagram? That was part of like a whole stories thing that she does called Sinner Sunday, where people send in confessions. Well, the new messiness is that somebody sent in a confession saying, I slept with Demi's husband while she was away last year. Mayci initially only tells Taylor and Mikayla about this because it really does seem so unbelievable, especially since Demi and Peepaw are always together. But the girls point out that there was one time that they were apart last year during their girls' trip, if we recall. Now, there is still plenty of reasonable doubt for Brett, but the odds are not zero. Layla also gets a bit of romance. She has a new man this season, as I mentioned. His haircut is horrific. He looks like a child that hid away and cut his own hair. But other than that, his dad is a bishop and he's only dated devout Mormons. But they are. Not that she's climaxed, though. I hate saying the word climax. What else can I say? Because I am going to have to continue to discuss. Organism. That's close enough. Now, has she gotten close? I can't say, but she certainly has not gotten there yet. Truly, the scene where she tells him to his face that she thinks she's going to die without ever having an organism with a partner, it is some amazing editing work. I mean, just in general, the producers this season, fantastic comedic timing on all of the shots and the editing. They are doing great work. God bless them. So Demi and Jesse throw her a sex education class to offer up some techniques, some knowledge, and they hire a sex expert for this. This woman is trying to bring them through genuine exercises, but of course, all we're getting is screaming, giggling. Oh, and a little dose of homophobia just for fun. And Layla, I think, recently has come out. A win for the girls. But of course, most of that party, at least that we see as viewers, is just gossiping and drama. And right as they're talking about Jen, ding dong, ding dong, speak of the Mormon and she may appear. And Demi is even bold enough to ask Jen about her issues with Zach, which she declines respectfully to comment on, which is probably her best move at this point. It is very clear, I will say, that this season is going to go a lot differently for Demi than last season did. Maybe partially due to editing, but also mainly because of her own behavior. You can see the producer's storyline subtly turning against her, though. For example, Mayci has a dinner to celebrate her book deal. Her book is about her crazy backstory, but the dinner is, of course, about having everybody at one table for drama. And when Mayci announces the book deal, the producers clock that Demi seems jealous and ask Jen about it in an interview, and she agrees. At this dinner, they also decide to play another truth box style game, which we all know is a bad idea, but we also all know this is a reality television show, so it's happening. At first, though, it's all lighthearted and fun, just little silly, saucy secrets, nothing about anybody else. And then suddenly, I think Jen is fake. Smiley face. I need you to know that there was a smiley face at the end. All the girls are gagged. Jen is crying. Abruptly, the dinner is over. So, who wrote the note? Well, directly afterwards, Whitney and Miranda are the ones comforting Jen. They, of course, really want to get back in the group. They'll befriend anybody that'll let them, so they're cleared from the suspect list. Jen thinks that it's probably either Demi, Jesse, or Layla. Now, feel free to give your guess before I reveal. Our culprit is Layla. Personally, I knew immediately based on the inclusion of the smiley face. She's so unserious, and honestly, I think it makes it hurt a little bit less for Jen, too. At the beginning of episode 5, they talk about Demi's fertility issues. Apparently, her and Brett have been trying to get pregnant for about 4 years with no luck. But either because they've exhausted all of the scientific methods, or maybe they don't believe in them, or maybe science is their last resort. I don't know, it's not clear. But they're trying a lot of natural remedies, like energy healing, for example. And those aren't really working either, as you might imagine, so it's tough times. As for Taylor, we see that she is still going to couples therapy with Dakota and rage baiting everybody online with content of him. I remember it well. They are not together, however, they are still hooking up, which is a bad idea, and her family is right about that when they reprimand her for it. She does take that under advisement, though, so she tells him, I'm done trying with you. For now, nothing's changing, and honestly, I'm over it. He is devastated. I am thrilled. She claims she still loves him, but she knows that this toxic cycle really needs to be cut. And in that moment, I was so proud of her. But also, don't hold your breath on that. Moving on, Jen and Jesse meet up to hash it out and find out who's lying about what regarding the Chippendales Halloween dance surprise and venting about Zach. In that conversation, they discussed that Jen knew on Halloween that Brett would be dressing up and doing a dance, and she was also told that there would be some surprises. Those surprises being Jesse's husband Jordan, as well as the actual stripper, which she didn't consent to. However, Jesse and Demi thought that it would be fine because apparently in that same conversation at the salon, Jen had mentioned that her and Zach were going to go to Chippendales as exposure therapy anyways. Personally, though, I don't know why her saying that would make them think that the Halloween dance thing was going to be okay, because her and Zach going together by themselves to Chippendales as an exposure therapy exercise, like intentionally, where they're going to sit there with their feelings about it and talk through it, is a very different scenario than doing that in front of all of their friends, having it sprung on them. I just don't see where their logic was at on that one. On the Ben Affleck situation, which I can't believe is a topic serious enough that it actually needs to be addressed, but I guess they're really taking those claims in earnest. Jen says that she was just going off of the information that she was told by Zach's family, which was that they were related to Ben Affleck. But now Zach says that that was just a joke and she should stop telling people that. However, she's committed to the bit, and I support her in that. I mean, come on, this is a victimless crime. His family isn't in the wrong for doing the bit, she isn't wrong for taking them at face value and believing it, and nobody is going to be majorly affected by what Ancestry.com says on the matter, related or not. But apparently it's a sensitive topic because when Jesse brings it up, Jen snaps. She starts talking about Jordan rubbing his tiny her during the Chippendales act and says, I know about your past. We don't want to swing with you. Basically exposing that Jesse and her ex-husband had like swung in the past. That is apparently what the story is. And then Jen storms out. And again, Jesse does fully admit to having swung in her past, but she says that that was a very long time ago. And she only told that to Jen in confidence. So she finds it very underhanded and annoying. Basically, it looks like Jen needs to find a new hair salon. Oh, and Jen also discovers after that via Mayci that Layla was the culprit of the note. Now let's talk about Whitney for a second because she's gotten very little of our attention thus far. She is still trying to get everybody to be her friend again with little to no success. And she also wants everybody to come to her upcoming baby shower, which we know is not going to be happening. Demi and Jesse are even planning a separate event for everybody who does not want to go. Mikayla also wants nothing to do with her and frequently makes TikToks shading her, which often feature Mayci, who Whitney thought was at least kind of her friend still, so she confronts her about it. Mayci kind of brushes it off and says she doesn't know what the caption or the text will be when they film them, but she does offer to help facilitate a meeting with Mikayla for them to hash it out, which is no easy feat. She has to create a ruse and essentially drag Mikayla to the peace negotiations. It is not her best idea. And after all that, Mikayla literally just tells Whitney, I have no interest in being your friend. I have no interest in putting in any effort to fix our relationship. That's hard for Whitney to grasp. So Whitney decides to pivot and at least try and get Mikayla to stop making videos about her. Mikayla says no. Whitney claims that it's harassment, which it's not. That's the reason she can't do anything about it other than ask Mikayla to stop. And Mikayla is very clear. I don't like you. I don't care about your opinions. I will be polite in person, but I'm done with you. And then Whitney quotes a Bible verse in her interview as like a jab at Mikayla for not wanting to be her friend or not being nice to her online. I don't think it's really doing what she thinks it is. Even if Mikayla is Christian or Mormon, I believe she's just Christian, not Mormon. But even so, I'm sure Mikayla can quote a Bible verse right back at her. Side note though, I do find it really funny when people quote a piece of text at you that you don't believe in as if it's rules that you have to follow. Like, what part of that means nothing to me do you not understand? It's not clocking to them. It's really not. But she has to move on to her baby shower, with or without Mikayla. In attendance, we have Jen, Mayci, Taylor, and Miranda. Many girls missing, but that's on her, honestly. However, those of us in attendance, including us as viewers, are rewarded with more information about the Vanderpump Villa fiasco. Apparently, Demi was playing truth or dare with single men, and at the end of the night, one of them kissed her on the cheek to say goodbye. Was he her secret lover, or was he simply embracing Italian culture? The mystery continues. And they also reveal the confession that Mayci got about Brett cheating to the rest of the girls who were at the shower. And while that's all happening, the other girls are doing their hibachi dinner for everybody who wanted to ditch the baby shower and stick it to Whitney. Interestingly, at this dinner, they say that Jen has actually become more of their Toby than Whitney. By Toby, I'm obviously referencing Toby from The Office. This is a term I use in my day-to-day life, and everybody has a Toby. It is that person that just annoys you an irrational amount. Like, you just don't like them. It might be even inexplicably, but like, they just cream your freaking corn. And for most of these women, it is no longer Whitney. It is now Jen. Of course, that excludes Mikayla, who still hates Whitney's guts, but this is a clear shift from last season. Of course, I do feel bad for Jen a little bit that she has become the Toby for multiple people in her sphere at once, but let's just let that be a humble moment of reflection for us all. Because while we all have a Toby, we are also all a Toby. For someone else, we are a Toby. And that is just the nuance of life. In episode 6, Mayci hosts a celebrity pickleball tournament. She may also have been playing, but I do not recall. Anyways, Whitney wants to plan some sort of big supportive gesture with all the other girls. Problem being, none of them want anything to do with her, except Miranda. And that's not to say that they won't be at that pickleball tournament. They will. They're actually making a whole girls trip out of the thing because they all still love Mayci. And Whitney will be attending that girls trip, but they just don't want to be a part of anything that Whitney is planning or in control of. So obviously tensions between Whitney and the rest of the group is a given on this trip. I mean, her and Mikayla actually hate each other at this point, but Demi and Jen have also indicated that they are essentially ready to go to war. So it's not looking like it's going to be a very fun trip for the girls involved. Of course, for us, it will be. For the girls involved. Except Jen does pull out at the last minute because she's feeling a yearning to leave the world. She's feeling a yearning to leave the world, and she can't have her brain chemistry defeat her before she even gets a chance to get in the ring with Demi. She's got to take care of that. So she's taking a step back. We'll see her again. Don't worry. Whitney is the only one privy to this info, and I will say she was being a very good and supportive friend. She is also the one in charge of telling the other women, per Jen's instructions, she is telling them that Jen is just sick from pregnancy. Demi thinks she's just being a coward. Let's be fair. Demi didn't know that the girl was going through depression like that. She didn't know. But it's still not a good look. It's really not. Oh, and by the way, Whitney is doing Jen's pregnancy reveal to the rest of the women. That's the first they've heard of it, and they're all saying like, I don't know about this Band-Aid baby. Doubt it's going to save the relationship. But we don't have too much time to discuss that because what does Jessie bring out but a truth box? Jessie is messy as hell, but I do appreciate her acting to move the plot forward for us. One of the notes is about Whitney's ongoing efforts to mend friendships in the group and basically how everybody just thinks she's doing it to keep up appearances and stop getting hate online. But she says that's not true and she does care. The confession that Mayci got about Brett cheating on Demi is brought in, as well as the allegations that Jessie was kissing this guy from Vanderpump Villa, Marciano, same guy that Demi allegedly got a kiss on the cheek from. But they claim that these rumors are both false. Although I do just want to note that after Demi addresses the Brett cheating confession, she says, first of all, I trust him, but I also trust that if anything really did happen, it would come to light eventually, which Taylor agrees with. She makes a pretty bitter comment to agree with it, though. That is referencing the Dakota ex Jenna scandal. Nobody directly says anything in response to Taylor's comment, but don't think that Demi didn't notice it. And don't think that Demi didn't take it as a slight. Was it meant to be a slight? I don't know, maybe a little, but she's certainly going to take it that way. And then the contract issue comes up with Demi wanting to axe Jessie from the show for a bigger paycheck. Jessie says they're past it, though. She says she understands what Demi's perspective was, but her mindset personally was just that she didn't want any of them to get caught up in money and lose friendships in the process. But all's well that ends well, she thinks. Of course, she doesn't know about all of the comments yet that Demi made while she was trying to get her kicked off. Despite Jessie being pretty diplomatic in her comment, though, Demi retorts like, well, it's easy for you to say. It's easy for you to not care about money because you have a hair empire and you make a fortune, which is true. And I'm sure that Demi's fertility struggles have probably impacted her financially to some degree, and I'm sensitive to that. But it's not like she's strapped for cash. At some point, you all just have plenty of money to be comfortable, and the only thing that's really separating y'all, at least from the perspective of normal people, is just whether you're being greedy about it or not. But we move on from that topic with relatively little tension. Next up, does Mikayla ever see herself working things out with Whitney? And Mikayla simply responds, I do not. Honestly, I respect that answer from Mikayla. I know that a lot of people feel like she was just constantly hating on Whitney this season, and maybe she was. Certainly, she should have limited the number of social media posts that she was making about her. But to be fair, she's not the one who's constantly bringing her up. Everybody else is constantly bringing the situation to the forefront. She's not really able to get any space from it. And on top of that, she's always having to be around her despite clearly not wanting to be. And those sort of forced interactions, they're only reinforcing her opinions. So, to be honest, I can't fault her for sticking to her views based on everything that they've been through. And I can't blame her for just being done giving out chances, especially when she's trying to do better at sticking up for herself for her health. Because as we know, the body keeps the score. Frankly, I think in real life, the willingness of everybody else to let things go so quickly would strike us as more odd than Mikayla's stance. It's not clocking to y'all, but she's standing on business. This is what standing on business looks like, by the way. I am sure that I have used that Justin Bieber meme already in this video. And maybe that's the business that I'm standing on. Maybe it's just not clocking to y'all. I don't know. Clearly, they haven't all forgotten about Whitney's behavior, though, even if they're not as annoyed as Mikayla, because there is also a truth box submission about Whitney missing Mayci's business launch last season and whether or not she regrets it. She does not. She's giving one of those, I have no regrets because everything that I did brought me to where I am now type of answers. It's bullshit, and Mayci knows it. And she's also kind of thinking, why the hell do I keep trying with this girl who seems to want to be difficult intentionally, or maybe just doesn't care that much about me? And why did I invite her here? And by the way, Mikayla mentioned on Vile Files that this was her last straw with Whitney. I know that we might have been thinking that we were past the last straw already, but no, this was the last straw. Mayci is clearly annoyed, so Whitney tries to have a conversation about it with her in the morning to resolve the issue. But Whitney's explanation is still that at the time of the launch, from the place that she was in, she just couldn't bring herself to show up. Okay, well, that might have been the right choice for you personally at the time, but it was the wrong choice in terms of being a good friend. So maybe you could regret it just a little bit. Like, just a little bit? No. She's trying to act like her and Mayci just have different definitions of the word regret. So then Mayci says it best, I feel like you want to be right more than validating me. Then Whitney decides to turn to a behavior that we're going to see her repeat throughout this season, where she basically just acts really lost and confused. Anytime that something doesn't go her way, or somebody doesn't like her, or people don't agree with her actions, she just kind of goes bewildered. Like, I just can't understand, like, why could this possibly be? Like, I don't understand how this could happen. Girl. She's also constantly saying how she just wishes things could go back to the way they were. Why can't they? And she is saying it like that, like a kid throwing a fit because they just don't know why they can't have the cookie. Oh, why can't I have it? Well, you did this to yourself. That's just kind of how time works, is that things don't go back to the way that they were. That's how time works. That's how relationships work. Kind of sucks. I agree, but that's just how it is. Then Whitney has the gall to suggest that it's because Mikayla doesn't like her and she's getting in the way of their friendship. To which Mayci says, no, because I'm an adult and I make my own decisions and I get to decide who I'm friends with. That's the end of their private conversation. But they walk into the living room where everyone else is, and Mikayla immediately is like, hey, so would you like to say it to my face? Because obviously they have all overheard the entire conversation. Whitney then accuses Mikayla of constantly attacking her, which Mikayla then rephrases as calling her out on her bullshit. Bullshit, which is going to go ahead and include justifying everything by saying that she was in a bad place to shift accountability, which in Mikayla's opinion is what Whitney was just doing to Mayci. Whitney disagrees. She doesn't think that she has made any missteps. And she'd like an itemized list if that is the case. But Mikayla is done entertaining this conversation at all. So she just says, I don't think anyone actually cares to have a friendship with you. She ate this bitch in one single bite. Ooh. I mean, I do think, again, that many of the public thought that she was too harsh. Not me personally. I think that some people, they really need to be delivered that final KO in order to change. And I think that Whitney's one of them. Like, up until this point, I just don't think she had that reckoning that she needed in order to be better. However, I do think that some of Mikayla's vitriol in this situation is coming from a place of being very protective over Mayci, who is her best friend, of course, and also kind of a fear that Whitney will try and turn Mayci against her. Because as you can see, the other women are a little bit more willing to give her another chance. Although, as Demi says, it's kind of hard to move past things when it doesn't feel like you get it or really understand anybody's feelings around it. And that is sort of the group consensus with Whitney, I think. At this point, the trip has turned into a hostile environment for Whitney. So after Mayci's pickleball tournament at the girls' dinner, she says that her angle is to get the heat off of her and Mikayla, she'll bring up Demi and Jesse's beef. It's hard not to laugh when she says some of this shit. Like, it's annoying to the other women, surely. And I get it. Oh, I get it. But as a viewer, I have a hard time disliking her because she's just such a clown. Anyways, at this dinner, they discuss lots of things that we've already talked about. But they also mentioned that they've all heard that Demi has been saying that she deserves more money on brand deals, which Demi claims is because it's no secret she was a fan favorite. And she's right, but smug is not a good color on her. So Taylor comes in quick to humble her, and she says, first of all, you weren't originally on this cast. You have all of this because of me. I'm the one who is bearing my soul on Hulu, and I'm not even asking for more money. So maybe check yourself and stop being greedy. And while Taylor is kind of an asshole about it, I do think she has the right idea here because she probably knows that the last thing that their working class viewers want to see is some filthy rich people fighting over getting more money. It's not cute. It's not cute, is it? And Demi is willing to give Taylor credit for getting them all onto TV. But in so doing, she basically refers to Jesse as expendable. She really needs some PR coaching, perhaps some humility training even after this dinner. But anyways, on the last day, they do content time, and Layla's plan to host a Friendsgiving is brought up. However, it's pretty clear she will not be inviting the whole group, just some of them. They blow right past that, though. Unfortunately, Whitney then decides this is a good time to ask, after this weekend, am I now back in Mom Talk? And she wants to do a vote. She claims that that was actually a joke. I'm not so sure about that, but the girls are happy to participate in some good old-fashioned democracy, so they vote. And the only hand in the air? Taylor. She's the only one raising her hand for Whitney because she thinks that everybody should have a second chance. Everybody else, including Mayci, are like, doesn't seem like we're all ready, especially not Mikayla. So, of course, Whitney will be blaming all of this on Mikayla. But I think a lot of them were just using her as a convenient scapegoat and they just didn't want Whitney. Miranda does not get a vote, but she is also still not a part of Mom Talk, although I do think that the vote for her would have gone better. In episode 7, we start with a blatant Amazon Prime ad. Yeah, it's not the first nor the last blatant ad in this series, but it was the worst executed. That's just the world that we live in today. But I hope it was ineffective. Anyways, moving on to Taylor. So, remember when I said that she broke it off with Dakota and I was like really proud of her? Well, it turns out they're still sleeping together. Not living together, so there is slightly more separation, not enough for my taste, and not enough to really be effective. Luckily, Dakota, that's not a phrase that you will hear me use often. Luckily, Dakota, not really in my arsenal of terms, but it is right now. He issues an ultimatum, all or nothing. And Taylor decides, nothing. We need to be apart. Thank God I'm back to being proud of her. Checking in with Demi and Brett after the cheating allegations, as we know, she initially said and believed that they were all false. But now the way that he's acting, the way that he's caring so much, it's making her look at him sideways. In addition to looking at him sideways, in this episode, she is also allegedly seeking a cease and desist for Jen regarding all of that Vanderpump Villa stuff. Jen has said that in the end, the cease and desist was never sent, and that may be because at this point in the season, Jen and Zach step away from filming entirely. More Jen, I guess. She's just not doing well mentally, she's pregnant, and she's concerned that if she keeps going with all of this drama, she's gonna pass away on purpose. So, fair enough, she's out. But like I said, she had plans to drag Demi's relationship and expose the whole Vanderpump Villa situation. And just because a girl is down now does not mean she'll be down forever. So we do have some post-season revenge in store. Episode 7 is also Layla's aforementioned Friendsgiving. And somehow Whitney does score an invite to this. Layla extending the olive branch, or more likely the producers. But Whitney cannot just accept the invitation. She has to put her own spin on this event. So now we are also doing a Mormon bake-off. She's making her famous sourdough for this. It's not famous, except now it's on Hulu, so I guess it kind of is. But there is a controversy because both her and Mayci claim that they started making bread first and inspired the others' love of sourdough. Whatever. Y'all can both be breadheads. I do not care. But since Mayci isn't making it for this competition, Mikayla decides, what the hell? I'll throw a loaf in to rival hers. Just to best Whitney. No other reason. And she commits. She fully takes classes and then makes 4 other dishes just so that she can look better than Whitney. There is a secret ingredient in all of her food, and it is not love. It's spite. Hey, at least it's not a used pregnancy test like Whitney's cake last season. Yeah, it could be piss. And it's not that, and I'm thankful. And let's be real, nobody suffered because she made additional food. And she only gets to enter in one of her dishes to the competition, so it's all fair. Layla's pie, by the way, completely raw. Taylor goes fully store-bought, which I find very funny. I know it's cheating, technically, but come on. On top of everything that she's got going on, you really want her to put her effort into a pie? And if you're really, really worried about the integrity of this competition, you can rest easy knowing that the store-bought pie did not win. The winner is Demi, then Mikayla, and finally Whitney in 3rd place. And then they all have a dinner, Friendsgiving dinner, what this event was supposed to be in the first place, if we recall. But they just talk about their various issues, nothing new really. Brett's cheating allegations do come up again though, and once again, Taylor has to make a comment about well, the Dakota rumors were true, which to me does feel targeted by, and it definitely is a little bit more pointed this time, but ultimately, I do think that Taylor is really just trying to say FML. And after discussing more of Taylor's ongoing bullshit, Demi does kind of realize perhaps she's more concerned with her own mess than she is trying to pry into my business. That mentality will not last, though. She's still annoyed. In episode 8, Mayci does an egg transfer, and it works. Yay, Mayci. And then the rest of the hour is devoted to Taylor's CMA drama and the fallout from that. So let's talk about it. 2 days after Friendsgiving, Taylor hosts the CMAs. Big opportunity, big deal. She posts all about it on her social media. And initially, those posts get no comments from any of the women. And by initially, I mean in the first 24 to 48 hours. So Taylor then takes to her Instagram stories talking about how nobody in Mom Talk supports her. Specifically, on November 23rd, Taylor posts on her Instagram story, "Not a single one of my girls from Mom Talk said anything on my CMA post. Such a big night for me. Eye emoji. Awkward." Then, after she posts that, Layla and Mikayla both commented on the post. Layla's comment says, "Sorry I didn't show my support to you with a public statement. Please forgive me, leader of Mom Talk." And unserious as always. And Mikayla said, "Please let me stay on Mom Talk. If they're aiming to amuse me, they are succeeding." But many people felt like this was just scripted drama. To which I would say, that's okay. I find it entertaining. So then, obviously, a bunch of drama accounts started picking this story up, but the women did come with receipts to show that they either texted her before she made that post or only commented a day late. And they are busy people. For sure. This was also the week before Thanksgiving. Most of them claim that they were very confused when they saw her post about it, and they kind of just thought it was a joke because she does do a lot of satire. That's kind of her whole bit. And Taylor does acknowledge that some of them supported her privately, but she feels like Mom Talk is also about supporting each other publicly, and they were missing out on that aspect. Demi makes it clear that she thinks that Taylor is a liability because she's so impulsive posting on her social media, whether it's satire or not. She also thinks Taylor is blaming everyone else when, from Demi's perspective, she's the one who's making questionable choices, bringing stuff upon herself, and ruining her own life. Mayci and Mikayla, on the other hand, are much less focused on that narrative and more generally hurt that it feels like Taylor is putting a lot of emphasis on the social media aspects of their friendship and not really appreciating the real life ways that they are constantly showing up for her. And shockingly, in this episode, her parents are like very supportive and loving through the whole drama. It's a far cry from what we've seen of them previously. Personally, I think it should have been handled privately. I don't think she should have posted about it publicly. However, I'm not surprised that she did because she posts impulsively out of emotion all the time. But honestly, she should focus a little more on Dakota's ultimatum and a little less on her Instagram comment section at the moment. Anyways, in an attempt to mend things, Mayci and Mikayla meet up with Taylor to talk about it. Because while they did not take the whole thing as seriously as everyone else because they know her and they're the closest to her, they are still annoyed by this a bit because while Taylor was really just being petty, it did result in all of them getting a lot of hate and being labeled as mean girls, including the people who were supporting her privately and have been there for her through thick and thin. Taylor admits that, yeah, it wasn't that deep, and she's glad that they didn't take it as such. But she also says she did it because she was bitter and annoyed, and she'd do it again because she thinks that public support is just as important as private support. She's not exactly backing down, and she definitely still wants to be petty, but she also realizes that she has obligations with all of these women, so it's probably better to keep the peace and to apologize, even if she doesn't mean it, and she does do so in their group text. We don't get to see the full text, but the snippets that we do see, I would say, are acceptable. It's not so sweet. Definitely not taking back her feelings about it. But she takes accountability for being short-sighted and the consequences of the post on all of them. There was allegedly a bit of a dig at Miranda and Whitney in there, but we don't actually see it, so we just have to take Demi's word for it, which I'm not inclined to do fully, because not only does Demi not accept her apology, she goes after Taylor to the point that Layla, who is closer to Demi, is Team Taylor on this one because, in her words, it was approaching bullying, and she thinks that Demi is just jealous. Meanwhile, Whitney is obviously leaning Team Demi, mainly because she's just thrilled that she's not the only Taylor hater. And Taylor is getting it from all sides at this point. We are in the week after Thanksgiving or around then, because this is the time when McKenna starts posting her side of the story, and Demi and Taylor are openly dissing each other on socials. Luckily, most of the other girls are over it. Certainly Layla is, and her and Taylor are ready to start gossiping about Demi. Because while they're doing a photo shoot together, Layla gets a text from Demi asking how much money she was making for the shoot, which they both agree is not a good idea to discuss with her because Demi cares way too much about money. And at the same time, Demi has told Taylor that there will be an atomic bomb coming for her at the next collab event that they're all attending soon. As usual, Taylor is leader of IDGAF Nation, and Layla claims that she will be backing Taylor up this time against Demi. And she even shows Taylor the group text that she has with Demi and Jesse where they are trashing her so that Taylor will have some ammo going into the fight that night. Basically, Layla has realized that while she's been Team Demi and Jesse this whole time, maybe she wasn't getting the full story. She's definitely starting to question them. But she also admits that she is terrified of Demi and doesn't want to stand up to her. So, it's time for Mayci and Jesse's collab event. The theme is, of course, Saints and Sinners, but the fight night, as we know, is Taylor versus Demi. And based on their Instagram posts about it, we are now in early December. Dakota is in attendance with Taylor despite the ultimatum because he wants to have her back in the ensuing fight. If Halloween was a lesson, you might call this a quiz, but frankly, he doesn't even have an opportunity to be involved. It's girls only. We do not need any pesky men interfering here. This is real business. And immediately, they are all headed to a back room to duke it out. The top item on the agenda is the CMA social media fallout. But these feelings have been festering since the pickleball dinner, when Taylor was calling out Demi's Machiavellian antics, trying to get Jesse kicked off the show and the brand deal agreed. Plus, the snide comment about not ignoring the Sinner Sunday confessions that Mayci got about Brett cheating. And all of that apparently prompted Demi to speculate to Layla that perhaps Taylor is just triggered. by Demi's immense success and her perfect relationship. All that to say, there will be no sparing of any feelings here. On the CMA drama, Demi does mention that this was around Thanksgiving, so they were with family. Them being busy and not seeing it immediately does make some sense. I think I mentioned that earlier. And Taylor does say she stands by the apology that she sent in the group text. After talking with Mikayla, she realizes that some of them might not have seen it genuinely, and some of them supported in private first. But she knows some of them didn't support at all, and she's positive that at least one of these bitches did it intentionally. She also claims that she didn't realize how much hate that they would get from her minions, as Demi called them, but they kind of call bullshit on this because she knows how many diehards she has. But nevertheless, Taylor reiterates that she is sorry. She does apologize to everybody except Demi. Demi has gotten her apology revoked due to online bullying. And let's not forget behind the scenes bullying. Taylor certainly didn't. She starts quoting directly from their group text with Layla, specifically a comment calling her dumb as a block. Taylor then accuses Demi of being fake, but nobody's gonna back her on that one right off the jump. Not unless she has proof, which Taylor claims she does. However, she doesn't want to say. But after some cajoling, she's ready to give it up. Unfortunately, this proof is a bomb. Before I share this, according to Demi, this interaction, although kind of disputed, this interaction occurred after Taylor had gotten a bad dye job done and had gone to Demi asking her if she should go to Jay-Z, Jesse's hair salon, to get it redone. So that's just a little context there. Now, Taylor claims that Demi said that she only goes to Jesse's salon because she feels obligated and that they are bad at hair, and that she encouraged Taylor to book elsewhere. Then Taylor admits that she did go somewhere else to get her hair done, and that's the underlying reason why. And actually, that allegation holds water because Demi admits that she said, "Don't go to Jay-Z. I don't know how they do with color. They're great at extensions." However, she explains that she only went one time and she didn't get color done, so obviously she couldn't speak on it. But when asked in follow-up if she was happy with her hair that one time that she did go to Jay-Z, she says, "I don't remember." And Taylor is quick in pointing out, see how she can't answer? And we all see. Truly, Demi put the dagger in herself by admitting that she said don't go, because where is your faith in your friend's skills? And why would you drive business away from her? Yucky behavior. At this point, all the other girls are just listening. And Layla, who was supposed to be backup, Layla is dead silent. Dead silent, eyes wide open as hell, frozen, petrified, dissociating fully. So Whitney and Miranda decide to chime in and kind of shut this all down and keep the conversation isolated to the CMA support. But Taylor sees this as them siding with Demi, and she's pretty annoyed by it. Because from her perspective, she was one of the only people willing to give them a second chance, so she expected a little bit more sympathy or at least neutrality from them. Frankly, I don't think that these little bits of dialogue from them are really indicators that they side with Demi. But I get her sentiment, and she is right about Whitney. Whitney is fully team Demi. And of course, Taylor is not at all amenable to their suggestion to return to the original topic and kind of try and end this peacefully. She's got some more fight in her. And best believe, Demi does too after getting exposed. So she decides to go ahead and bring up Taylor's abusive relationship with Dakota as evidence that she must be a horrible person. They almost pulled Dakota for cross-examination on that one. Thankfully, the other women intervene finally because they have a kid. They really just don't need to be doing all of that. So Taylor apologizes once again, reiterating that she is sorry for the hate they got, but she doesn't regret the post itself. And then they all disperse, except Jesse, who Taylor apologizes to again. Specifically, she wants to say that she's sorry that she had to embarrass her and drop that hurtful information on her in order to expose Demi. But she also reminds her, this girl has gone behind your back twice now. Be careful. She is not your friend. And Jessie is thankful that she was told despite the humiliation. I honestly feel really bad for her in this instance because she was collateral damage in all of this, really. But Jessie has bigger concerns to be dealing with because in episode 9, we find out that Jessie is getting part of her thyroid removed to be tested for cancer. And that medical intervention is only happening because she was reached out to several times on Instagram after last season saying that her thyroid wasn't looking so good. And turns out it isn't. So she's dealing with all of that and also planning for their girls' trip to New Orleans. And I believe this girls' trip was filmed around December 14th because people were posting about them being in the city around that time. Jen, of course, won't be attending, and Taylor is also opting out of this trip. And that is by choice, not based on the outcome of the Saints and Sinners fight night, which you may be wondering, who won that fight? I'm here to tell you, the war is not over. No. We are just in a very brief lull between battles, okay? They're attending the wounded. They're gathering troops. But they're still very much out for blood. Like, despite the clear signals that everybody wishes she would stop, Demi is continually talking shit on this trip, and not just about Taylor. The first night at dinner, they get a video message from Jen, basically just telling them that she's very much struggling mentally and physically, so she's in therapy, she's trying to get better, and also she apologizes for potentially having hurt any of them. And Miranda mentions after they watch it that Jen specifically told her that she really wants to apologize to Jesse, who responds with a lot of grace and empathy, along with all of the other girls. Demi is not prepared to be that understanding, though. Her reaction is basically like, ew, a crying apology video? Cowardly, corny, cringe, not genuine, and certainly not enough groveling for her either. To be clear, this wasn't like full tears, though. Jen just choked up a little bit. And listen, do I find crying videos cringe? Yes, of course I do. I can't even cry in front of people. So perhaps I'm projecting a little bit, but I think most people find them performative. This wasn't that, though, not at all. And then Mayci mentions that after all of the fighting that she's witnessed in the group, she doesn't feel like she can confide in the majority of them because it will just be used as ammo in future fights. That comment is clearly pointed at Demi, but she seems completely oblivious to it. I don't know if she actually is, but that's how she's playing it. Then we get a brief intermission where they go to a burlesque show just to keep things light. But after that, we're right back to talking about the Taylor situation. They're just picking Demi's brain on it, and basically she just thinks that Taylor is a bad friend, and she's getting closer to Whitney based on their shared hatred of her. The next morning, Layla says, "Time for pregnancy roulette," because she's late on her period and she is not considering the potential consequences of this. So they're all going to take tests, put them into a bowl, and then each girl will pick one out at random and reveal the result on a TikTok. I know that that sounds very strange, and it is, but it was a huge trend online at the time. Demi openly says that this is going to upset her, it's going to trigger her, but they go ahead and do it anyways. I'm guessing because production probably told them to. And this is a horror movie for Mayci, because if you recall, she is secretly pregnant and she was trying to plan a courteous reveal because she is sensitive to Demi's feelings and her fertility struggles. That's ruined now. But at least Mayci is not alone because there is 2 positive pregnancy tests. And Demi is the one who pulls out the second positive test. She, of course, starts crying, can't blame her there, because there's a moment of hope. Obviously, that's what she wants to see every time that she takes a test, except she's pretty sure it's impossible that it's actually her test, and she definitely does not want to take another just to have to see the negative sign to confirm that it isn't. So they then are like, hey, if you're pregnant and you know it, clap your hands. But no one does. We do find out that the other positive test is Mikayla's. She is also pregnant. Mayci did know, but nobody else does. And neither of them wanted to tell people this way. But Mayci does take a moment to reveal her pregnancy to Mikayla, which is a very sweet moment in the midst of this disaster scene. However, they then have to tell Demi, which is tough. Jesse has already been consoling her, which is very, very nice of her, considering they still have not discussed the backstab reveal from fight night. But anyways, Demi reacts very well, actually. She congratulates them. She apologizes for making it about herself, but obviously she is still quite devastated, which is understandable. Nevertheless, she pulls it together and they all go out on the town, which is the perfect time for Jesse to take Demi to the side and confront her. She's like, girl, I curl your hair all the time. I give y'all everything for free. What is your problem? Demi says it wasn't as harsh as Taylor described it. She never said, don't go to Jay-Z Styles unless you want to cry, which is apparently one of the quotes that Taylor gave on fight night. We didn't get that clip. And where the hell is that clip, producers? I would like to see it. But she also says it was never said, and it was never said in that way. Now, was it never said, or was it never said in that way? I know that I'm nitpicking here, but it did seem a little suspicious to me. Ultimately, the summary of her response, though, is basically, oops, sorry, didn't mean to hurt you. That's not really enough for Jesse or for me, but they just leave it there, and Jesse decides she's going to take a step back. She's going to put some walls up. And she wonders in her interview, is Demi the cancer of the group? Something to think about. Moving on, they then all go back to their Airbnb and discuss Mormonism. Jesse, Layla, and Miranda, and I think Mikayla too, state that they're more into the core values of Christianity rather than Mormonism specifically. But other than that, they mainly talk about the Mormon church's rules around marriage and sealing for the afterlife. And sealing for the afterlife basically means you're with them forever, because I guess you can't be with them in heaven otherwise. I don't know. I don't know the explicit rules of Mormon heaven, but that's kind of what I gather. And Layla says that she would go through the temple if she married her current boyfriend because it's important to him, which most of them seem to be judging her for, because why would you do something you don't believe in just for a man? Honestly, I don't really know where I fall on that one. I guess like I wouldn't do it, and I don't think it's very like reverent or genuine to that religion, but also I'm not really religious, so I don't really care what you do. At night, they go to this like apothecary / restaurant, so they're doing witchy looks. It is full coven mode. And I know I normally don't comment on their outfits, although believe me, I always have opinions, okay? But I do just have to say that Layla was looking particularly breathtaking on this night. Just gorgina. Whitney, also a super campy outfit as always. Love it. But I just had to note it was fantastic. But on to the content of the night. Demi's main goal is to get all the girls on board to overthrow Taylor as leader of Mom Talk and kick her out of the group. Nobody wants to do that except Whitney, who is keeping her mouth shut because she's still trying to get into the group. She cannot afford any negative PR. Demi is also not helping her case by making it all about money. She's framing it as Taylor is a bad friend because she's hurting our businesses with her bad reputation. So therefore, we should drop her. Which, after all of that shit that she just pulled with Jesse, it just comes across hypocritical, not to mention greedy, controlling, and jealous. And my girl Layla, she's not just serving looks tonight. She is among those who chime in to back Taylor. And when Demi goes, this is the last thing that I'll say, Layla says, thank God. Genuinely made me cackle. I also love that the producers always zoom in on her reactions, and they are genuinely so hilarious. She is the every woman. She is the viewer sitting in on it. Our reactions are always aligned. So anyways, after repeated pushback, Demi decides, ultimatum. If Taylor's in, I think I'm gonna be out. Crickets. Crickets. Not the crowd she thought it was. They basically all just trail off the conversation at this point because they've tried to reason with her, and the bottom line is, you don't run the group. Post-NOLA trip, Layla visits Taylor and her mom and tells them all about Demi's ultimatum and the plot to overthrow her. They also mention the Christmas party that Demi is throwing, which Taylor thought that she was invited to, based on receiving an invite, until Layla says that she's pretty sure that Demi accidentally put it in the group text that had Taylor in it, and she's not actually invited. But Taylor makes it seem like she will be going regardless, because one, she's not going down without a fight, and two, she already picked out a dress. However, flash forward to the party, and Taylor's mother is arriving in her stead. She's just there to deliver Taylor's gift to Demi, as well as deliver the gift of confrontation, because this is a mother who cannot stay out of her child's business. So she and Demi have a chat. Whitney is also briefly there as backup, but Demi does not need backup. She needs somebody to hold her back, because she is particularly vicious in this scene. Taylor's mom accuses everyone of not being there for Taylor because they're jealous, and then she reminds Demi that Taylor brought them all here, she got them this opportunity, and so maybe instead of trying to oust her, they should show her some appreciation and support, especially since she's going through such tough times. Demi says, actually, we've all had hard times, and she's never been there for me or anyone else, so I have zero sympathy. But hold on, I need you to picture the full scene, because this is great television. All the other women and their husbands are sitting in the background, absolutely stunned, because they are watching Demi go apeshit on Taylor's mom, who is in full tears at this point. Demi is practically yelling, and she's saying, she doesn't get my sympathy. She needs to go to therapy, get help, and be a mom. And then Santa enters the room. Ho, ho, ho! Fantastic timing. No notes. No notes. Leanne is now on her way out after being briefly consoled by Jesse, who, like the other women, is absolutely appalled by Demi's treatment of their friend's parent. And that more so seems to come from like a respect your elders vibes, which, hey, I think cuss out your elders if they deserve it. That's equality. But Leanne did not deserve it. She is annoying, sure. Sticking her nose where it doesn't belong, absolutely. But she's not the true target of Demi's spite, and I think she should have just left her out of it and moved along. Anyways, now that Leanne is gone, it's time to open Taylor's present for Demi. And it is a Jay-Z Styles hair set. A petty present. Very reminiscent of the Fruity Pebbles from season 1, and seemingly the only type of gift that Demi is going to receive throughout this series. She is pissed. She's pissed. And she wants everyone else to be mad too. But how can they be when it's so damn funny? At that point, they end the night by deciding that they need to have a board meeting to discuss who's in, who's out, and all of the drama. Going into this meeting, Jessie has decided to take a break from Demi because she's on a warpath right now and she's being a bad friend in the process. Plus, she has not forgotten about the betrayal, and she's starting to notice that that's kind of a pattern with her. Taylor also does get wind of her mom's visit to the Christmas party and is livid about the way that she was treated, but she is not addressing it with Demi because they're not speaking right now, and she's saving her energy for the board meeting, which we're going to talk about now. The first topic of discussion is whether Miranda and Whitney are in or out. They decide to give it more time with Miranda. She will remain honorary. Taylor specifically says that she just doesn't think it'll ever be the same. It's kind of uncomfortable. But more so, they feel like she hasn't put in enough effort yet. She needs to do some grafting, as they say across the pond. On the other hand, most people are now voting yes on Whitney. Mikayla is still a hell no, though. And Taylor's yes is only very begrudgingly. And she does tell her, FYI, we are not friends anymore because I stuck up for you even though you were one of my #1 haters. And yet, you continue to constantly go against me, so I'm just done trying with you. Nevertheless, majority rules, so Whitney is back in, but on thin ice. Now we get to the real beef, Demi versus Taylor. Taylor tells Demi that she knows about the ultimatum that was issued, but she does not throw Layla under the bus for this one because Layla is once again mute at time of confrontation. You've heard of dead on arrival, DOA. Well, now we have mute at time of confrontation. And many of us are guilty of it. She doesn't need a source anyways because it's not like Demi can deny it. And then Taylor says, you're a bad friend. You've kicked many of us while we're down. Specifically, you have been horrible to me, Jen, Jesse, and Whitney. Demi refutes these allegations as a whole, but also specifically calls out that she did nothing to hurt Jesse. Wrong one to choose if you're going to try and debate these points, because Jesse is immediately like, well, that's not really true. That's not the truth, Ellen. You drove people away from my business and you tried to get me kicked off the show. Arguing among the girls ensues, during which at some point Demi says, it's just hair, referring to Jay-Z Styles. I actually gasped. I gasped. It's a small comment, but that says so much. And Jesse is like, excuse me? That is my life and my career, and belittling it is not going to fly. She is not having any more of Demi's excuses. She sees straight through that therapy speak, and she knows there is no remorse and there is no accountability going on. Demi also claims that she did nothing wrong going after Jen because she was spreading lies about the Vanderpump Villa situation. But when asked, what is the lie and what is the truth, she suddenly cannot form a full sentence, which makes all of the girls feel very suspicious towards her, particularly Layla, and put a pin in that. Taylor also mentions that the things that Demi has been doing to them, talking shit about Taylor's parenting, ragging on Jesse's business, these are life-ruining things. They're not just petty reality TV drama. Like, why is she going for the jugular at all times? And according to Jesse and Mikayla on their Vile Files episode, the random idea that Demi had to pretend she was having an affair with Dakota for a plot point, that was also brought up during this meeting. And she was like, what? Y'all thought that was weird? And when everybody was like, yes, absolutely, that's weird, she apparently turned to Jesse and was like, really, Jesse? Unbelievable. But anyways, then we get back to the point. Will Demi leave if Taylor stays? Because the other girls don't have a problem with Taylor, except Whitney, but she doesn't really count for this. Demi responds by posing a question to the group. Question for the culture. She asks, how could any of them be friends with Taylor when she is such a disgusting human being? She also says that she can't believe that none of them are defending her, especially because she is such an amazing friend to them, and she would be fighting for them if the roles were reversed. Ugh. Honestly, this little exposition about being such a great friend really gave me the ick. Like, you need to let somebody else give that compliment to you. That's not something that you can just proclaim about yourself, especially in this group. The girl's only real reply to this is just like, none of us have issues with her like you do, so we don't agree that she's a disgusting person. And I think, like I said, many of them are wondering how she can make such claims of being a great friend after all of this shit. So it's basically crickets after that whole monologue. Maybe they got the ick too. And Taylor uses this opportunity to smoothly slide in and be like, well, the door's there if you hate me so much and you want to leave. And Demi does leave. She rolls over. She asks if everybody is okay with giving her time to decide. It really feels like she wants people to beg and plead, but nobody begs, nobody pleads, nobody says a word. Not even Whitney. So out she goes. Now, you might be surprised that Whitney didn't defend Demi or ask her to stay or anything like that, but frankly, you shouldn't be. Whitney is back in Mom Talk, and it's clear that's all she ever wanted. Demi was just a life raft, and now that Whitney is safely on the shore, she has no problem watching her drift out to sea. Bye, Demi! Bye! Ooh, that water looks choppy. Ooh, that's tough. Hope you have a good swim. See you later. She really doesn't care. Taylor is also pleased with the results. She knew that one, nobody wants to side with somebody that's trying to force their hand. And two, everybody else sees a friendship side to this group. And to me, maybe she does too, but right now she is all business and nobody really wants that. The majority are honestly relieved to have all the tension gone, and they're fine with losing Demi in the process because she was instigating most of it. In this episode, we also see Mayci return to the crash site where her ex-boyfriend and father of her child was in a fatal accident. It's traumatic, of course, but also very healing for her, and Mikayla is there to support her through it. They have a really sweet friendship, and it's nice to see that some of them are genuinely good friends. But now, I told you to put a pin in Layla's suspicions earlier. Take that pin out. Layla meets with Marciano to get to the bottom of this whole Vanderpump Villa situation because he was the one that all of the rumors centered around with Demi. He says that he didn't really know who they were going in. He just knew the whole like Mormon swingers reputation, and he was really into Demi. They talked a lot, and he says he may have mistaken some fun banter for flirting. However, he does also say that he did try and kiss her, but it seems like he was rejected. The reveal of the season, though, is that Marciano says that he did hook up with Jesse, and they've been having an affair. Apparently, Jordan knows some of it, but not all of it. And that is the season cliffhanger. On January 7th of 2025, they begin filming for season 3 because they move quick. And on February 11th, Jen announces her pregnancy to the world. About a month later, too, Jen posted on TikTok going to Chippendales with Zach, and she gets on stage. They're joking about the whole thing. I'm not laughing. Oh, and also on Valentine's Day of that year, Taylor said that she was in her alone era, confirming that her and Dakota were still broken up. According to a Marie Claire article, they filmed the reunion in April of 2025, which was while they were filming season 3, but before season 2 had actually been released to the public. And then much of the press tour and those interviews happen in mid-May after the season is actually released. And then the reunion was released in July. Now, similarly to last time, I will be going topic by topic. So there will be some information from the reunion, some from the press tour, and I'll do rolling credits so you'll be able to see where everything is coming from. Also, importantly, Demi is opting out of the reunion. However, Nick Viall did interview her separately, and then he shows the footage of that at the reunion so that they can all discuss as a group. Now, onto the topics at hand. I'm going to discuss a few more serious ones to start with that are not drama, but are mentioned during the reunion. First, Layla tells us about her history with self-harm and body dysmorphia. Relatable queen, we love her. And also, her and her boyfriend are done. The way she talked about it on the Between Moms podcast, it sounds like he was like experimenting with being bad while he was with her, but now he's decided that he's going to be a better Mormon. This is apparently very on brand for Mormon boys, and she is absolutely done with that shit. Then we turn to Connor's corn addiction, and he also tells us about the sexual abuse that happened during his childhood. Nothing really to say on that other than that's horrible and he shouldn't have had to go through that. And they also do discuss Mikayla's history with sexual abuse, and she said that Connor was actually one of the first people to reach out to her and encourage her to go to therapy and has really gone out of his way to support her, despite the fact that she and Whitney hate each other. Although Whitney does say that she cares about Mikayla, she just wishes she didn't. And then Nick Viall makes them hug, which is hilarious. Now, Taylor and Dakota. They have remained broken up and they're trying to work on themselves to be better for their kid. And Taylor tells us that even more reveals have happened. So, there was another girl at the beginning, not Jenna, another girl that he fully slept with, and Taylor did find this out and confronted him. Not because they were exclusive, but because he said that he did not sleep with more than one girl at a time. Which, as she points out, he did not have to say. She didn't ask that of him. He put that expectation into place himself, and she was just upset that he lied about it. So, when she confronted him, he admitted to it, she was upset, and while she was taking the time to process, crying literally the day after confronting him, he hooked up with Jenna. And then the next day, he just moseyed on back to Taylor, apologized to her for the first girl, and they slept together. And only now, after she's had his baby and Jenna has started to talk, does he finally reveal to her this hookup that he had with Jenna in between the confrontation about the random girl he slept with and their reconciliation. Again, one single day. He could not keep it in his pants for one single day. I mean, I guess he did keep it in his pants because him and Jenna didn't sleep together, but you know what I mean. Basically, this man cannot tell the whole truth, ever. And I do want to add in, again, there is the context that he is a former addict. He discusses in season 3 how, he hid his using from people for so many years that hiding things and lying is basically just his instinct at this point. That behavior is kind of ingrained. It's an explanation, but it's not an excuse. Definitely not an excuse, because the treatment that he is giving her, the way that Taylor is finding these things out, it is brutal. I can tell you that confidently. It's like Chinese water torture, but with past transgressions. Drop, you can't trust me. Drop, I hide things. Drop, what else might you not know? Drop, will you ever know the full truth? You get the picture. How can you ever move on from the past when you just keep getting new reveals? And she's pissed most of all because he gaslit her and did not reveal anything about this, as I'm sure he didn't about many other things, until he knew that she was going to find out anyways. So, as she says, he did not do it out of the goodness of his heart. That's not why he was honest with her. He was finally honest with her because he was cornered. Ultimately, the consensus is that Dakota wishes that they could still be together, and he claims he would be 100% honest and loyal. But Taylor, known leader of IdGaff Nation, doesn't gaff because she knows it's not true, because literally weeks earlier, she discovered more lies. However, with all that being said, they are still continuing to take pictures together, flirty little pictures, and also, they are still continuing to sleep together. And everybody is just begging them to stop. Moving on to Jen and Zach. Jen is doing better now, so that's fantastic. She has mentioned on podcasts during this press run that she did in fact have a problem with her and Zach's dynamic prior to the show, so we were just all seeing it come to a head. And she has also said that after season 1 airing and the whole Vegas incident, she was kind of on her high horse thinking she was very perfect and everything was Zach's fault and Zach was the whole problem. But during season 2, she has realized that she has some issues that she needs to work on as well. And speaking of her issues, she decided to reveal to us that her second child was conceived because she took out her IUD without telling Zach, which caused back-to-back babies. That is super icky to me. Not the back-to-back babies. The lack of transparency with the partner that you're engaging in relations with. The lack of transparency around contraception. That is icky to me. Now, they seem to be completely fine, so I'm going to assume that they addressed that privately long ago and just mind my business, but I hope she learned that that's not okay. As for Zach, he openly admits that he's quick to spiral, both internally and externally. Twin. And he is now on anxiety meds, and he knows that he has to take a beat before they argue so that he can decide who he needs to be. As in, I choose to be calm and not listen to intrusive thoughts. Again, twin, although obviously not. Nothing of the sort, but I can relate to the spiraling struggle. And he is also currently working through feeling emasculated by their new dynamic where he's the main caretaker and she is the main earner. This term, emasculated, consider that a breadcrumb for season 3. You are about to be so sick of that word. Violently ill. Consider yourself projectiling, fever, chills, calling poison control. That's how sick you are going to be of that word in season 3. Now, they have said that Zach does still gamble. However, now there is a lot of transparency around how much and on what he is betting. And sometimes they even do it together. Did that seem believable even a little bit? I'm not thrilled by that. In addition to betting together, they are also in a lot, they very much emphasize that, a lot of therapy. And apparently it's working and they're doing better. Some other General Jen updates. General Jen? Yeah. She says that she is still not sure if they're related to Ben Affleck. I'm just so tired of hearing about it that it's actually starting to circle back around and become funny again, you know? And in terms of her status as a Mormon, Jen is still technically in the church, but it's a complicated relationship at the moment. Nevertheless, she is still in it, mainly because she was raised that way, and also it seems to be her safe place. The parts she really likes seem to just be Christian values and community, but it does feel like she wants people to ignore and put their judgment to the side on things like garments, that kind of stuff. But those are the details that make it Mormonism. So no, I won't put that aside. Now, let's get into Jen and Zach as a united front against Jesse and Demi. Although it seems like things have pretty much smoothed over with Jesse, as we saw during the season, she and Jen both seem to feel like they were a little over the top during their meeting. Jesse has grace for mental health issues. She admitted that she thinks she probably was a bit harsh on Jen and definitely got caught up in the drama and what she describes as Demi's agenda to make it look like Jen is lying. So Jen and Jesse are both willing to forgive, it seems, or at least they acknowledge that they have bigger fish to fry. And since Jesse also has problems with Demi now, I'm sure that helped patch things up with Jen, uniting over a common enemy. It's powerful stuff, because for Jen, things with Demi only got worse, seeing as there's all this talk about the cease and desist around the Vanderpump Villa situation. Demi has mentioned in interviews that when the camera is off, Jen is more laid back, demure, kind of wants to smooth things over. Those are the vibes. But then when the camera is on, she's more bold and dramatic. She seems to think she's quite performative. And Demi and Brett also specifically think that she puts Zach in situations to play the part of the abusive husband and that he's a much better person in reality than she makes him out to be. Although they do not deny that all of the Vegas stuff was real. So, sorry, I'll let his actions speak for themselves. Now, during an Entertainment Tonight interview with the full cast, they discussed a bit the Halloween episode where Chase touched Demi and then everything blew up. And there's still very much mixed opinions on that. Some people feel like she was being dramatic. Some people feel like just don't touch anybody without consent. And Demi certainly does not regret it. But I bring this up because the topic of don't touch anyone without their consent makes Jen pipe up. Jen points out that she never gave consent to the male stripper, which Demi says she thinks is a different scenario, but she does commend Zach for stepping into protector mode, as she feels Brett also did on that night. They then start arguing about whether or not it was mentioned that the professional dancer would be there. Demi claims that she has video evidence, but then Taylor jumps in and says, no, I've seen that footage, and the professional dancer is never mentioned. That was a surprise. But Demi isn't backing down. She says that that's not true, and even if it isn't on video, she did tell Jen, and Jen gave consent. Then at the reunion, they play a clip from Demi's interview where she says that she thinks that Jen was just running away and using her mental health as an excuse when she left the season, although she admits that maybe those go hand in hand. And she also said that she didn't think Jen's apology video was very genuine, especially since she invited Jen to the Christmas party afterwards and Jen didn't go. I don't see how those contradict each other, personally. And honestly, I'm sure that Jen was pretty happy that she didn't go to that Christmas party in the end. Demi barely went herself. She was just yelling at Taylor's mom the whole time. Jen's main response to everything that Demi has thrown at her is to tell us that Demi is playing 4D chess, and she's very manipulative. That's kind of her thesis. But specifically, she would also like to remind us of a conversation that she had behind the scenes with Demi during the whole contract fight, where she was once again trashing Jesse. And she said that she feels like Demi is portraying her as a liar to the group in order to, 1, detract from her Vanderpump Villa fiasco, and 2, so that the rest of the group and the public won't believe Jen's side of the story about what really happened there. A lot of their personal issues are now tied up in that event, but that's a summation of all of the conflicts outside of that specific area. Although, again, as Jen said, they may be somewhat linked, they may have been somewhat influenced by the whole Vanderpump Villa thing. And trust me, I will get to the Vanderpump Villa thing, but we got to go topic by topic. And the next topic is Demi and Jesse. Once best friends, and now not even close at all. Demi claims that Jesse blocked her, and when she tried to have a conversation with her, Jesse said, "We'll talk about it on camera." Peepaw's reaction to this was disappointed, but not surprised, because he apparently never thought that Jesse was a real friend to her. However, Jesse said that she's not interested in being friends with her anymore. She will, however, be cordial co-workers with her on an as-needed basis only. And Mikayla reiterated the same thing, so we know where she stands. Miranda is also Team Jesse because she still remembers her drama with Taylor, as the rest of the world does as well. And this feels like a repeat to her. In this specific comparison, Miranda is seeing some of herself in Demi because Demi is on her deny shit, as was Miranda when all of the swinging scandal stuff came out. However, in hindsight, she can see that she was projecting a little bit and there was indeed some truth. So she's thinking the same about Demi, especially since she has talked to Jesse, and Jesse has apparently been very honest about everything, even the stuff that makes her look bad, a la Taylor. I do want to note, though, that Miranda also said that Jesse has done some things that surprised her. And that's a season 3 teaser for you. Now, at the reunion, there was a brief discussion about the contract negotiations, mainly just Zach telling us some more of the things that Demi was saying behind Jesse's back, such as that she is disgusting and that she has no respect for her. Horrible stuff. They also bring up the whole hair debacle again, and Demi expands upon it in her interview. She claims that Jen, Layla, and Whitney all said that they didn't like the way that Jay-Z Styles had done their color. So when Taylor came to her after a bad color experience saying she might go to Jay-Z, Demi said, better not. And while she claims that she was just trying to relay the information and save a friend from a bad dye job, which is fair enough, I suppose, she also understands now that by relaying that information, she was shit-talking her friend's business. Her stance, though, is basically don't shoot the messenger, because in her mind, Jesse should really just be mad at all of the girls who didn't like their hair. However, Jesse tells us that she's actually talked with all of the other girls and they had already resolved it, and they also go to her for color. And Nick Viall does make a good point that perhaps the reason why it is so annoying and why the girls are so pissed off is because Demi talks such a big game about loyalty, and that was very disloyal of her. Jesse and Demi have both clearly moved beyond this one issue, though, especially with the Vanderpump Villa drama, which I swear we will talk about soon. But just know, they're now full enemies and attacking each other's character. In the reunion, Jesse accuses Demi of being a bully and says that she just gets away with it because she's funny, at which point Nick asks Whitney if she agrees, and Whitney says that Demi is passionate and that she has bully tendencies. Not a resounding defense from your one and only ally and friend. Meanwhile, in her interview, Demi claims that Jesse's number one goal is to be famous, and she thinks the same of Taylor, seemingly because she's not doing brand deals. So, like, if she's not in it for the money, she must be in it for the fame. Whereas for Demi, it has and always will be about the money. It's just a job to her. And I guess she sees that as the morally right approach. I don't see a problem with either. And since Demi was mentioning Taylor, let's get into their feud, which is really not Demi versus Taylor. It's actually at this point just Demi versus mom talk. The first point that Demi mentions in her reunion interview is that she thinks that everybody is either afraid of Taylor or thinks they owe her something, and that's the only reason that she hasn't been kicked out of the group yet. But all the girls say, no, that's actually not the reason. We're not cowards, but thank you for assuming that. We were not silent. We were not silenced. We were silent. And that's actually because we don't agree with you. Or your shit talking of Taylor. We don't have any issue with her. In fact, Taylor is one of the most generous and inclusive when it comes to all the mom talk stuff. She lets us have lots of brand deals and press opportunities. She didn't try and make more money than us. We're all good with her. We keep trying to tell you, you're the problem. Maybe you should listen. However, she does still have an ally in Whitney, who during the reunion says that she doesn't like the way that the other women treat Demi. Specifically, she mentions like mean and snide comments. And then she has the nerve to say, what did she ever do to you? Jesse is like, you're kidding. Surely you are kidding. She has been a horrible friend to me. She called Taylor trash and tried to get her kicked out of the group. She sent Jen a cease and desist. Not to mention, she was pretty mean to you just one season ago. Remember that? Remember that, Whitney? Perhaps you should, because right now it's really looking like she only became friends with you because you both hate Taylor, which Whitney denies, but we all know that that's true. Then we get into a political discussion of sorts, that being, who is the president of Mom Talk? Is it Whitney? Is it Taylor? Is it Demi? We have a three-party system going, which is more than can be said for the US. But clearly, this time around, the winner is Taylor, the incumbent. No surprises there. But of course, to Demi and Whitney, it is a big surprise because they think Taylor is awful. And yes, everyone can acknowledge that none of these people are perfect. All of these women have committed various offenses against the group, and the girls within it, some of them have committed various offenses outside of the group. But Taylor comes out on top. Why? Because she takes accountability when she fucks up. Whereas the group consensus is that Demi and Whitney are unable to take accountability and have no concept of consequences for their actions. However, Whitney is still confused. She will not take accountability for these accusations that she can't take accountability. So we have to do a live vote to really hammer it home for her. We ask the women, is Taylor good at taking accountability? All hands raised. Is Whitney? Only Miranda says yes. I do think that was probably enough. But Nick Viall continues clearly picking at Whitney to try and get her to admit to this flaw, even saying that he has never seen her take accountability. And I wish he hadn't done this because, one, it did just feel like too much. At this point, she gets it or she doesn't. There's really no need for more than a live vote. You've already humiliated her. Let's stop while we're ahead. And two, I feel like it turned the conclusion of that conversation away from her lack of accountability and into her as the victim of his incessant criticism, because then she starts claiming that they're all just ganging up on her because she's on the outs with the group and she's an easy target. But Taylor is not going to let that line of thinking slide. She reminds Whitney that she has supported her, even when that was a very unpopular opinion, and she just got voted back in the group, so she is quite literally on the inside. The only way in which she is on the outs is because they don't agree with some of her behavior, which they are entitled to. Now, we've transitioned pretty smoothly into talking about Whitney, so let's keep on that thread. Obviously, we know that most are not fond of her. She really only has Demi and Miranda. But let's start with their comments because we did just replay the whole live vote humiliation. Miranda said that she tends to give people the benefit of the doubt more than she should, and that perhaps she is guilty of this with Whitney. And it has also been suggested to her by the other girls that it may not be a coincidence that Whitney has chosen to be friends with her again at this time when Miranda is actively winning over the rest of the group and Whitney is, as she puts it, on the outs. Could it be that maybe she wanted an ally and not a bestie? Absolutely. And Miranda knows this. She's no dummy. But she doesn't really care. I think that she probably has friends outside of this show, and it's just not that serious to her. As for Demi, all she said about her friend is that Whitney can really only be Whitney, which I guess is true. Now, on to her haters, which is pretty much everybody, including Nick Viall, and God, I wish he would stay out of it. But we all know that her number one hater this season is Mikayla. Whitney calls Mikayla a bully because she says she's incapable of being nice to her, and she makes both direct and side comments about her whenever she's around. As I've mentioned, I don't see Mikayla as a bully. I just see her as somebody who is being forced to hang out with the number one person that pisses them off, and it shows. We also get an unseen clip of Mayci and Mikayla having a conversation with Whitney where she's telling them that she felt unsupported during her marital issues, which would be fair enough, except as they mention, she was denying all of the rumors and pretending like everything was completely fine. And given that they all had their own shit to deal with, their support for what they were told was just internet gossip was somewhat limited. Whitney then says that they're invalidating her feelings, but Mikayla responds and says that Whitney's feelings are valid, but so is their perspective, and they're feeling that the support they did show her is being ignored. So what does Whitney want to say at this reunion? Well, mainly that she thinks everyone is bullying her on their podcast interviews. The girls are certainly talking shit. They are. Mikayla specifically mentioned her constant victim mentality, that she leeches onto others, and that she will always pretend like she has no idea why people are mad at her, and then runs away crying when they tell her. However, they don't see it as bullying, but rather, as Nick Viall puts it, They are just simply answering questions about their experience with her, and that is not the same as going out of your way to hurt someone. He is correct here. Once again, Nick Viall is correct. But I wish he would stay out of it. Stay out of it. He's essentially a character in the Mom Talk universe at this point. He should be up on the board. But I'm not going to put him up there. I will not be giving him that satisfaction because this wall is sacred. It's not a board, it's a wall, and it's sacred. Anyways, let's talk about the Vanderpump Villa fiasco. Finally, I know. First off, I want to say that I have not seen Vanderpump Rules or Vanderpump Villa, so my knowledge is like a little bit spotty in that regard. However, I do not think it's going to be an issue for this. That being said, if I'm missing something, if you're a big Vanderpump girly, a Vanderpump vixen, shall we say, and you want to add some context, I would absolutely love to see you in my comments. Go ahead. From what I gather, Vanderpump Villa is a reality show about the staff of Lisa Vanderpump's, you guessed it, villa. They fight, they hook up with each other. They also seem to frequently hook up with the guests, many of which are celebrities. I don't know what their company policy is, but that seems to be the premise. So Jesse, Layla, Mikayla, Jen, and Demi all go and stay at the Vanderpump Villa. It's a crossover of epic proportions. It's like Hannah Montana X, That's So Raven X, The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, but for the modern day reality television viewer, for those such as myself, except I don't watch this one. But like, there was always one was your least favorite of those three television shows, but you were happy to see them all together. From the moment they arrived, the other girls claimed that Demi was being very flirty with the guys, to the point that the rest of the staff noticed. There was even discussion in season 3, which I am watching right now, about Demi being very touchy with this man Marciano, playing Truth or Dare with them. And the other girls said it seemed like she was like looking for opportunities to be alone off camera with him. And Mikayla did say that she had a discussion with Demi at the time where she said basically, hey, just want to let you know that this is the way that things are coming across and just a reminder that you're on camera. But Demi said basically, back off, I know the boundaries of my marriage. Now, Demi is definitely not denying that Marciano was into her. She said he was definitely interested, but she wasn't. And then she alleged that he groped her while they were at Vanderpump Villa. She claims that she told the rest of the girls who were there about it, and some of them told her that she should press charges because it's SA, but she said, no, that's not how I want to handle this, and then asked them not to say anything to anyone. But Mikayla and Jesse said that Demi told them initially and for some time after that she was not a victim and that she felt that she had been playing into it because she was flirting with him a lot. This is not the only version of the story, though, because Zach claims that Jen called him during her stay at Vanderpump Villa and said that Demi was crying to the girls saying that she cheated and crying on the phone to Brett telling him that she may have gone too far. How far? Well, according to Jen, this was sitting on Marciano's lap and kissing him. This, however, was apparently not 100% shocking to Jen because she said that she had heard that Demi had had some similar situations in previous relationships. So at this point, Jen told Mikayla that if Demi continues to drag her relationship through the mud in the next season, she is going to out her for all of this Vanderpump Villa stuff. And as we know from the whole season 2 and the Halloween fiasco, Demi did indeed continue to fan those flames. Jen did decide to expose her, and that's why she claims that Demi was going after her so much this season. Now, all of the events at Vanderpump Villa were after the whole contract fight, so Demi and Jesse were already not on great terms. And then Demi ditched an interview that they were going to do together on the Shenanigans podcast, which is hosted by a member of the Vanderpump Rules cast. And not only did she ditch, she did not give Jesse a heads up. She no-call, no-showed. So allegedly, according to Demi, Jesse took that opportunity without Demi there to tell Sheena, the host, about Demi's groping allegations, even though she said not to tell anybody, which is not cool in Demi's book and also probably not in anybody's. By the time we get around to the reunion and the press circuit, though, people are really starting to doubt Demi's SA allegations for a few different reasons. The first of which is, as Mikayla and Jesse said, she was initially saying that she was not a victim and she was flirting, so it feels like she's changing the narrative. Which I understand, but it's also quite common for people to feel at fault after something happens to them. And just the things that they were saying, it wasn't strong enough for me to be like, oh, 100%, that was consensual. She was definitely into him. But some of them were there in person, and I obviously wasn't. So I don't know. It is a very tough line. However, another reason that people are doubting her is because she is still talking to Marciano, and not by forced proximity. She is initiating contact with him. Jen claims that Demi continued to want to invite Marciano to stuff after all that happened at Vanderpump Villa, and Jesse brings to the reunion some screenshots of what she feels are flirty text messages between Marciano and Demi. They're not like egregiously flirty, more like dirty jokes, but I wouldn't want my husband on the other end of them. He's not my husband yet, but he won't be if I find him on the other end of any text messages like that. I can tell you that much. And even Whitney, her one ally at the moment, says that she does find them very odd and definitely inappropriate. And she's even forced to admit that after seeing those flirty text messages, she wouldn't trust her. Miranda also mentioned in an interview that there are other things that happened that are not being discussed that appear to have been consensual, so things are getting very messy. We also get a bit of drama around it during the interview with Entertainment Tonight that they did. The interviewer asked Demi about the Vanderpump Villa situation. She reiterated that Marciano's feelings for her were not reciprocated, but then said that she didn't want to speak any more on the matter because it turned very serious. So then the interviewer asked Jen for her reaction to this, to which Jen says she can't speak on the matter because she has a cease and desist. Now, that's not 100% true. As we know, she had heard that Demi was going to serve her one, but it hadn't actually happened yet, which she does admit when Demi calls her a liar and tells her to show proof. They bicker a bit, but in the end, Jen just wants to say that she's not the liar that Demi is making her out to be, and there's a reason that she wants to shut her up. To which Demi retorts that even her own husband thinks that she's a liar. Okay. But Jen is adamant that we will see what she means in the future. And some might say that we got a pretty good taste of that at the reunion because Zach and Jen have some information to share with us. I guess that cease and desist never went through. They tell us that apparently there was a conversation with the group that Zach and Jen were present for where the Vanderpump Villa situation was brought up. At some point during this discussion, Demi said something to Jen along the lines of, "How dare you? I'm a victim." What did Jen say to provoke this response? We don't get to know that, okay? But it's not super important because we're really just honing in on the word victim here. Because after that discussion, Brett and Demi called Jen and Zach to discuss that label. Specifically, Brett did not want them to use that label. And Zach's theory is that this is because he didn't want Demi to call herself a victim and then people to dig into it a little bit more and find out that she wasn't, and that would ruin their reputation. And also because falsely accusing people is horrible. I'm sure that was also part of it. And unfortunately, I do have to give Zach a little bit of credit here. You know that pains me. But he got to work recording this phone conversation, and that's a smart move. From what we hear, Demi basically tells Jen to not mention the Vanderpump Villa situation, deflect if asked, and instead talk about how great her and Brett's relationship is. Jen is very clear in her response that she'd rather not discuss this situation at all. But alas, she was there, and it was filmed, and multiple conversations about it were filmed. So she just doesn't see how they could possibly get around this without having to lie, which she is not willing to do, and she says as much. At which point, Jen and Zach claim that Demi and Brett threatened to cease and desist. And that's where we leave Demi for season 2 and the context that we need going into season 3. Now, as we know, in addition to rumors about Demi, there were also rumors about Jesse and Marciano, which we can't discuss because that's spoilers for season 3. But I will say that at the reunion, Jessie is not wearing her wedding ring, and she says that they are going through stuff, so it's not looking good. Okay, that is everything. I will stop talking your ear off now. Feel free to chat about this season in the comment section. I will definitely be there. And if you enjoyed this video, you can thank me for all of my hard work by liking it and subscribing even, if you really want to hear more from me, which of course you do, right? Don't answer that. Anyways, I will see y'all soon for season 3 and other videos too. Love ya. Bye.